G'day, folks. AOS Coach here, and we are talking about the Las Vegas Open 2024. I've just gotten back actually about a week ago. Had almost LVO'd. I know a little bout went around. I think I avoided it, but I certainly was a little sick coming off the back of a convention. But we're not here to talk about my health status. We are talk about the event and post-reflection on what I think was an incredible week. I traveled halfway around the country to attend this amazing tournament that is the world's biggest Age of Sigmar tournament. And to help me talk about this event, I've invited some of SoCal's finest. I have to say some because I know in the comment section I'm going to get people like Shane, like Gareth, like Chris, like Hernandez. All of them are going to jump in and go, I should have been on it. I'm a part of SoCal. But anyway, returning to the channel, we've got Matt the Nooog Nguyen, who you probably recall from not only his incredible dabs, but has helped me unpack. Actually, you unpacked LVO last year with me.
Yeah, I was your LVO host for the video last year too.
But more importantly, people know you from your Beast of Chaos. So who knows what comes up, and maybe they get a Dawnbringer's treatment, and we'll get you talking Beasts in the near future. But welcome back. We'll do formal introductions and talk about LVO in a second. But I will also introduce our two debuting people. First is Trish, Celefaze. Not you, Taran. I'm introducing Trish first. I'm going in an order. So I'm introducing Trish, who you probably know has been an absolute advocate for Slaanesh for forever. I've always known you as Slaanesh in the goods and the bads, and I'm incredibly excited to have Trish joining us.
A lot of you may know me from my absolute inability to keep my own thoughts in my head at 3 a.m. and making it the rest of the AOS community's problem. But I'm happy to be here to represent Slaanesh. Been with them since before we had a book, and it's been a wild ride.
It's awesome to have you, and yeah, like I'll be late at night in my area, and I'm like, why are you still awake? And Taran, if whoever's typing, stop typing. And finally, we've got Taran. This is going to be a madhouse. This is going to be. I feel like Venturella handling Tom. Like, Tom, stop it. I've also got Taran Bedek, also Birk or Beak, however he wants to pronounce it, because he's told me like 7 things before we kick off. I don't quite trust him because I have seen him at his absolute worst when it comes to tacos, and it will come out. It will come out in this episode. So I don't know how Taran's going to go, but Taran played Blades of Corn, again, an absolute advocate of Corn. Welcome, g'day. Introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm Taran. I'm not too active in the AOS Coach Discord anymore, but I just love playing Corn, and I try to go to as many tournaments with it as I can, and I'm happy to be here.
You don't have to be active in the Discord to get an invite here. It's not like a prerequisite in order to get on the channel. It's nothing like that. But we get to hang out. We got to hang out last year, and we've hung out again this year. So I thought you all could help me unpack what I thought was an incredible tournament. We will go through some stats. We will talk about the event. We will talk about our lists, and we'll also reflect on our favorite moments. And there was a lot of them. There was a lot of incredible games. There was a lot of stuff that happened outside of the tournament. But I might do a quick round around and start with you, Taran. What got you actually into Warhammer? Like, what's your hero's journey?
I started off with Total War Warhammer. I've always liked the Total War series. Like, my brother got me the game when I was like 8 for my birthday or something like that. So I've been playing it since then. And then during COVID, I was like, man, I really need something to do. All I do is sit at home all day. So I really like Seraphon, or I like Lizardmen. So I picked up like 3 of the start collecting boxes, and I just got into it, and I started hobbying it. I really love and I appreciate like when people just put so much time and love into making this army. Actually, mentally, I enjoy like the hobby side a little bit more, and I think like it's so much more impressive when people just like have something they love and it's like their baby. I've been yet to do that. I'm a very slow and sloppy and disorganized painter. But yeah, and I started playing. I just jumped into a tournament. I had never played a game before. I just jumped into a tournament. I got destroyed, and on my next tournament, I got destroyed, and then my next tournament, I got a little bit less destroyed, and it just kept growing from there.
That's awesome. And now you are the destroyer. Trish, about yourself, how did you get into AOS?
Well, for me, it was kind of a long journey. It started with actually HeroClix was my gateway drug into 40K. So I'm gonna show my age here. I bought this game called City of Villains back in the day, and it came with some free minis. So I started playing that game and did a bunch of like hobbying and modifying to those. And then somebody said, "Why don't you just play Warhammer?" And I'm like, "Why don't I just play Warhammer?" And that led to fantasy, which eventually led to AOS. And, the last like 5 years have been my journey from being like a narrative gamer to a tournament gamer. And it's been a wild ride.
And the cool thing is they don't have to be mutually exclusive, which is always the fun thing, at least for AOS. You can be absolutely narrative as well as be competitive.
Absolutely. And like you see that with a lot of people in the community, like naming their characters on their lists, which I always love to see. It makes it a little harder to read, but it's like, no, it's worth it.
Yeah, I've actually, like on my Gargans, I've actually 3D printed nameplates for them. Obviously, Gargan's a lot easier; it's 4 models, but there's always something nice about naming your heroes. I actually reward them. I'm sure it'll keel over Tomo. I always reward people 1 tournament point on their list if they submit it with their names. And Nuge, how'd you get started?
Well, that's kind of a long story, but to make it short, I was living abroad for I think between 2015 to 2018, 2019, or I think maybe a little earlier. Basically, I was living away from California for 6 years, living in Asia and Europe, and then I came back, and I think I was going through like a lot of little depression at the time because I guess I was lost, didn't know what to do. And then, kind of walked into a games workshops for one day after I was also playing Total War Warhammer. And my first in the army I really loved playing on that game was Beastmen. And then I walked into the store, and then I saw all these models. And the 2 armies that sold me were Beasts of Chaos and Daughters of Cain. And as soon as I saw that Marathi model, I was like, oh. And well, fast forward to from the end of 2018, here I am with all you guys. And yeah, it's been a fun journey. Yeah.
Speaking of journeys, and I might I've already asked Taran. This moderation thing, this is hard. This is hard work on making sure people get equality on the mic. But Matt, while I've got you, I might continue with you and ask. You talked about time and you talked about investment. LVO is a big financial investment. So to set the scene, and I'll put some photos up in a minute, LVO is the world's largest Age of Sigmar tournament. It is 360 players who rocked up approximately. I think it was a little bit more, but there's about 360, almost 400 players who actually played at the event. There's about 1,040K players. There was other things happening, like I think there was Marvel Crisis Protocols, and there was maybe Kings of War, and there were other games. So it's not just like it's not even just a Games Workshop convention. It's all these people who go to Las Vegas, which is an expensive place to be. They potentially fly or drive. It's a long week, so people are taking a good amount of their hobby time or their holiday time and family time to be at this particular event. Why do you spend all this time and resources to go to the LVO?
I think my answer to that question was I remember when I went to my first LVO back. I think it was the beginning of 2022. So this past LVO has been my 3rd LVO, but my very first LVO, I remember going in for the first time, not knowing what to expect because our entire community was like, "Oh my God, LVO is like the biggest capstone event of the year. It's all the hype and it's Vegas, and I love partying and I love Vegas. So like for me, it was and I get to play Warhammer, so it's a bonus. As soon as I got there, I just remember seeing like just hundreds of tables, seeing like many people play like Age of Sigmar, I've never seen before. And I thought that was just like the coolest thing ever. And it really just like sucks you in, because you get to usually, we all have our local scenes that we play with, but then when you travel all the way from wherever you are to Vegas, you get to play people you've never played with before, and then you get to make new friends, make 5 friends, not 5-0, I guess what the saying is, right? So I think the camaraderie there is great. And then obviously after, you get your games done each day, you get to explore Vegas and enjoy it with all your friends, and make a lot of memories, whether good or bad or too crazy to remember.
Anyone else want to jump in? But I don't have to feel free to just anyone jump in. Taran.
I
don't know.
Okay, yeah. I love going this year. I think this is my second LVO. I love the people I go with. That is a very, very large part of it for me. To say I'm gonna take 5 days off and I'm just gonna hang out with Matt and we're gonna drive up, and I genuinely am always so excited for the car ride. I know Matt's gonna tell me things he's not supposed to tell people. He's gonna be like, "Don't tell anyone I told you this." He's gonna tell me a million little secrets on the way. He's, um, like it's very fun to be with people I know, people I've been in the hobby with, and to make this trip. It's not the worst coming from California. It's not where it's not like you where it's fly across the world, buy a hotel. We sardine canned in a hotel. And just getting to the convention and stepping in is an amazing experience. I would just buy the convention pass and not play. It is, you just you're in a zone that it feels like you're meant for, this is I love this game, and now it's all I'm going to be thinking about. You get to go to the vendor halls, you get to talk to people. I get to see AOS coach. It's my annual AOS coach meeting. You get to see these people who you've talked to online. It really is for me, the social part of it is 90% of it.
Yeah, it's the biggest reason why we do any of this in this hobby. It's even though I love the game, I love the models and everything, but I think why this hobby has become an important part of my life is because of all the friends I made along the way, and all the adventures and the traveling. It's what I was mentioning earlier, that when I came back from living abroad, I was not sure what to do myself. I was kind of lost, and then I feel I found myself with Warhammer and doing all of this. So yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Trish, anything to add?
I think the thing that I love most about LVO, and that just justifies it so much, is it's got this sort of convention energy alongside GT energy, because 90% of people are also staying in the hotel, so there's this little community going on, and you'll run into people everywhere, just passing by at the bar or at the slot machines. You'll see some really big names. And that's the other thing is because you have all these people coming from every single meta, it's one of those weird and wacky places. If you have a small meta, going from that to here where you can just say hi to Gavin or Tom Guan or Jeremy, just people, you get to put not just a name or a face to the name, but you get to put a personality to both, and the community becomes so much more real when you're in a place where everybody comes together like this.
I don't know if I could have said it any better. I think all three of you have really nailed the point. To me, community. And by the way, this is not mutually exclusive to the Las Vegas Open. I've definitely felt this at Adepticon. I've felt it at other events. But I think the vibes of Las Vegas just kind of amplify it, and everyone's coming in for a good time. And to your point, I remember last year, I think Matt, we all went out. I think it might have been after the video game bar. We went out and, we got back to the hotel at 3 a.m. I'm walking back to my room in the hotel, and I run into Miniac and Ninjon. And we're just talking at 3 a.m. in the gaming lounge, having drinks. I wanted to go to bed, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. They pulled me over and we were just chatting, and it was such a great time. And there's all these random ad hoc things that are happening, right? And people are asking me all the time, what's your plans? What are you going to do, coach? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm happy just to go with the flow. If someone says, hey, let's go out to have waffles, cool, let's do it. People are on the gaming hall. People go out and do things. Like, we all went out to Old Vegas for a while. There's so much that happens at an event like this that is just beyond the 5 tournament games that you play. Like, there's just so much. And to me, it makes me feel connected to the broader Age of Sigmar community. It's not just the local stuff that's happening. It's like the big picture. Like, you're like, holy shit, this is a massive community and you're all friggin' cool. Like, and that's how I genuinely walk away from events like this.
Yeah, it's also like one of those few times in our lives where like we're able to take like 4 or 5 days off where like, we just do nothing but, play Warhammer, hang out in Vegas with everybody and just like relax. Like you get to not, you get a little break from like, whatever we're doing in our lives. And, we just get to really like immerse ourselves in this, like, it's literally the capstone event. It is the last event of the year before the end of the ITC season. So I think that's what makes it, really exciting for everyone because there's so many like storylines going on, besides just hanging out with people. There's, maybe there's some people racing to see who gets the ITC crown or like best team or best in faction and everything. It all like, comes down to like this event because it is the biggest, like generally Age of Sigmar event that happens every single year.
Yeah, it's taken over. CanCon was the biggest tournament for about 3 to 4 years in a row. And then around COVID, LVO snuck up and it's just continued to get bigger. So momentum has now shifted, and it wouldn't surprise me next year if this is 500 players. Like, thoughts and prayers to our TOs. But this just keeps getting bigger because people just tell it their friends and they tell their community, hey, let's come together. Let's get a hotel room together. It's that community that you're talking about. It's so fun. And again, it's not just Vegas. Like, this does happen to other events. So whether it's Nova, whether it is, Bloodshed in the Shire, whether it's CanCon, you do get these vibes as well. But it is a wonderful experience for LVO.
Yeah, like I think to me, LVO is like, if we had to say Age of Sigmar was like a religion, it's kind of like, it is the mecca of like events when people like come. Probably some people think Adepticon and Nova are like that too, but I think because it's the end of the ITC season, like for a lot of people, it is like we all make this pilgrimage to go to Vegas and just have a good time.
I think as someone who's been to both, if someone's wondering like what's the difference, I would probably say Adepticon is an incredible convention that happens to have a tournament attached. LVO is an incredible tournament that has a convention attached, and Adepticon has like lots of painting workshops and it's very hobby aspect as well. I think that's probably an opportunity for LVO if they wanted to expand the scope of what the event is. Probably not as big of a hobby thing as Adepticon, but as a match play event, even they even at AOS narrative, like it's an awesome experience.
Yeah, they even this year, like for the first time, they even had like a cosplay LVO event. And I remember taking a bathroom break and I watched all these cosplayers just like watch by. So it's really cool that they're like adding, I think Frontline Gaming is trying to make LVO more of like a convention, like a Dipticon, where you just see like a bunch of different things rather than just being a war game exclusive, which is cool because the event space is big enough for it.
And that's like honestly, that's like something I get giddy about of like going to the like LVO is like not just taking out like Warhammer and just kind of going with like this wargaming in general. It's super cool to put faces and like a booth to products and things that that you just always see online. Like when I went and I saw the the Squidmar like manta diorama, and like I got to see like people who are like YouTube like painters I watch, and I'd be like, oh, that's their model right there. I can see what it looks like in real life. I can go to the Baron of Dice like stand and like buy their stuff. It's super cool to have that happen.
Taran, that is the perfect segue, because the next thing I wanted to ask you about was the things that happen outside of it, because there are a lot of incredible vendors. Baron of Dice had a massive stand. People just like buying dice. Like, it was incredible. Games Workshop had a stand. FLGS has like a buy and sell where you can get like cool discounts. There was a lot of cool vendors that were selling new products or products that I might have seen online that I could grab, like Artist Opus and things like that. Taran, did you pick up anything like anything of note, whether it was like something cool, something interesting, a mad deal, or even a product that maybe you hadn't been exposed to?
I definitely got a lot of stuff from Baron of Dice. Like I got like the Skaven like dice tray and bag, and then like I got like a sticker, and then my friend was like, "Oh, can you grab me this?" I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna grab this." I went back to like Baron of Dice booth like 5 times. Like the designs are super cool. It's super cool to like be like have that organization in a way, not to be like, "Oh, here's my Ziploc bag," but like, no, here's my like faction bag that has like art on it. um I went to the FLG, the bin items a lot. I know like all 4 of us were there for like a while trying to get as like much as we can for cheap. So we definitely all bought a couple of items there too.
Yeah, I think so I love, haggling and negotiating, and I think one of the best deals I got from this year, and I got it as a gift for a friend, was I got a fully built like mega garden. I think it's like a Kraken eater for $40, because they didn't, I guess whoever I was talking to didn't know the value of the Age of Sigmar item at the time. So, and I was just like, hey, you want to sell this, right? And I'm just like, I'll offer to you for like 40. And they're like, yeah, sure. Because they just, I lucked out because they literally had no idea. They didn't bother to like Google or look it up. And I think they were just happy to get all this used stuff out of the way. I also got a lot of other incredible deals, like getting like 30 like plague monks for like $20. But like, outside of, and also I helped some other friends get deals, but I love trash can diving, and that's kind of like what we like did over the weekend. So next LVO, highly recommend people go to the used section. Or maybe I shouldn't advertise that.
No, that's the opposite. Like,
Don't give
There's
away
no
the
deals
secret.
there.
Actually, yeah, I didn't even think.
No, I've gotten some truly insane deals there as well. Like a third of the bliss barbs that I have that I don't use currently, but we'll get to that. Actually came from that booth, and I think I got like 22 for some insanely low amount.
Yeah, I remember
It was like $10 or something. They were
Yeah.
already built too, so I avoided that pain.
Yeah.
Maybe some context for people who don't know quite what we're talking about. So Frontline Gaming have their own booth or part of the convention hall where they, as a business, will buy and sell models. So they've got like a traditional retail store where you can buy brand new boxes and product, but they also resell other people's stuff. So if you wanted to get rid of an army or a bunch of models, you could sell them to Frontline Gaming. And Matt alluded to the bin diving. They've got these big containers where they've just got models that are in like sandwich bags that you can go in, and there's a price on them. They're usually, anywhere from like 40 to 70% off. Some of them are painted, some of them aren't, some of them are poor condition, some of them are basically brand new that someone just wanted to sell. And with an eagle eye, you can pick up some incredible deals. Like I picked up some old Empire models to help me with my old world. I picked up a Leviathan, an IDK Leviathan, and I'm going to smash it up, and I'm going to use its shell as a backpack for a Mega Gargant, like a Ninja Turtle. I saw Trish's face go, "Why are you smashing a Leviathan?" And she's like, "Okay, I'm impressed. That's cool." I just put like a Ninja Turtle War Stomper. I don't know. It just seems dumb. What else did I buy? I bought some other interesting, like I was, and this is not a product sponsorship at all, but I was talking to a place who does like cognitive type of like, basically I was talking to Jeremy, the winner of LVO, literally last night about this, and I mentioned nootropics. It's like a brain fuel, and coders and various people use it. And I'm like, they were selling gummies, and I picked them up to kind of to help with like cognitive load, especially at tournaments where you're trying to remember everything. Picked up a bunch of stuff from Games Workshop and Artist Opus and Dice, Baron of Dice, and Two Thin Coats was there. Like, there's a lot of cool stalls, and they often had people like they had Sam Lenz was at the Army Painter booth. Who else was there? Duncan was there at Two Thin Coats. Who else? There's just a bunch of cool people you see either in the community or adjacent to the community. So I thought that was really cool.
My only complaint about the Two Thin Coats booth is that all of them were wearing one thick coat, and I feel like it was false advertising.
They're British though. You think that they would be used to the? I suppose like they wouldn't want to have two. You're in Vegas, right? It was never actually cold, so you probably only want to have one thin coat. But I like what you were trying to do there. While you're being cheeky, Trish, I might actually ask you. So I got a bunch of questions as well that was submitted from Discord, but also from Twitter, and I might direct this to you, Trish, first, and then I'll get everyone else's opinion on this one. Coming from Alex Roberts, who talked a little bit about like the Age of Sigmar community and is it more LGBTQ friendly space than other games? And I kind of clarified and said, are you talking about Dungeons and Dragons or are you talking video games? And we're kind of talking here just about tabletop. Given that there's so many people coming to this event, do you find that Age of Sigmar is a friendly space either for that community and or in comparison to others?
Well, as one of SoCal's resident handbaskets full of rainbows, I can honestly say that the AOS community as a whole has been super, super chill. Like I was actually at LVO with my fiance Liz, and you know, both of us, neither of us ran into any problems, and she was playing 40K, which has a little bit of a reputation in that regard. And so like, but I haven't been on that side of it. I can only really speak to AOS, but the community here is almost like aggressively accepting. Like there is zero tolerance for anybody acting uncool based on who a person is, and we generally just come together to be a community no matter who you are. And you can see that in a lot of the major teams. Like if you look at like Party at the All Points, so much of their merchandise has the flag designs and such. And they go out of their way to be incredibly accepting. And, I've never felt unwelcome in the AOS community. And we all go out of our way to make sure that it is a safe place, and not just safe, but a fun place for people, regardless of who they are.
Anyone want to add? By the way, thank you. And I'll share some thoughts in a second. But Taran, Matt, anything that you'd add from your observations? And it might necessarily be about the LGBTQ community, but I know the LVO, especially for Age of Sigmar, there was a lot of women gamers. Like there was just a heap of them, right? There was a heap of representation. And I always felt that whether it's sex, religion, politics, like it's never been a problem. Not to say that doesn't happen. Like I'm not like gaslighting anybody, but I think I've always felt that we're generally acceptive. Anything that you'd like to add here, Matt or Taran?
Yeah, so I think that's the beauty of like the Age of Sigmar community I've always noticed since I've joined is that like as I think especially not only just in SoCal but in other teams like Tough Crowd and the other one that seems like we have like members that for example in SoCal like we come from all walks of like life we're all different like cultures different like sexual orientations different professions and everything, but like we all unite because we're just here to have like a good time. I think that's just the mantra of like Age of Sigmar in like a nutshell, that we're just here to have a good time. And I think Age of Sigmar has always like prided itself and has always like advertised itself to be like, hey, we're playing a fun war game, we're here for a good time. And yeah, while a lot of us do like to play it like competitively, like the three of us, all of us here, but we also competing is like, I think it's the side objective when it comes compared to just having fun and being able to have like 5 fun games. So I think, because we all have this in common, nobody, thinks about like, oh, where you're from or where all this. Every time, I see an Age of Sigmar players like, get to know each other, talk to each other. They're like, oh yeah, I'm this, or like, I'm from here. Like, oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's cool. And every time we're at the tables, I see people like buying each other drinks and then like taking selfies and like, doing like dumb fun videos. And I think, I think even though all the other games have their own perks and what they're great, I think I will continue to. I love the Age of Sigmar community. And I'll continue to stick with it because we just have this like camaraderie, especially during the awards ceremony, which we can get into later, where we just all become like a zoo, and we're just cheering each other on no matter who's like winning. It's like great.
Taran, anything finally to add to this?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I do think it's an important distinction, right, between I go to this and I'm friends with these people and I'm on a team with these people and there's no problems, right? But I think the AOS community is happy to take it one step further, and like every single person I know wants to know you. They want to like know everything about you. They want to care about you. Like honestly, like I've had like heart-to-heart life conversations with people I met 5 minutes ago, and they're plastered, and they're like, "Let me tell you everything, like I've everything about me, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're just that guy from like I don't know, I'll just random team like Tough Crowd, right?" It's very awesome that like everyone, most people at this event, they like care, like they care about you. They're like, you are someone who cares about this game, and I have so much in common with you, and I'm so happy to talk about so many things with you. Like people in AOS are chatterboxes, which is really like that's the distinction I think I've noticed. Like people in AOS love talking to you about everything. Like they're not afraid to strike up a conversation, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think it's like a blessing that a lot of us like like tend to be sociable, and even like people who may be shy but like they feel like they always. I've noticed that like some members from like SoCal who are like maybe they're not like super talkative, but they always feel comfortable playing with Age of Sigmar players because we always try to like be welcoming and everything. And I'll never forget that like I think it was the first or second night at LVO. We just got to our hotel after driving like 4 hours, and then I ran into like party at the all points, so the host, and then I know him, he knows me, he didn't know Taran and our friend Eugene, and he decides to like Dayton. He takes us all up to the room and just gives us beers, even though he didn't know Taran and Eugene, but like because he was just like, hey, the guys, let's have a good time, and like he was just like how Dayton is, he just opens his like arms up wearing like nothing but like his like short shorts, and it's just like you're in for a good time.
Liz and I actually had the same experience. I think the next night, we randomly ran into Dayton, and we had only communicated on Twitter, but it was just like, oh hey Trish, what up? Let's hang out. And that's part of the magic of LVO, is that stuff just kind of happens. Like, you'll meet new people and you will run into those kind of off the cuff situations that just can't happen anywhere else.
Yeah, I think somebody among us was saying that people are aggressively friendly in Age of Sigmar. That much is very
Yes.
true.
Yes, that was Trish.
We want you to have a good time, and you are going to have a good time.
Yeah.
If I take a step back as well, I know the original question from Alec was around the LGBTQ community, but even just people who have accessibility challenges, or I know even leading up to it, I saw in my Discord, for example, some people like, hey, I've never been to a big event. I've got some social anxiety. What can I do? And the amount of support and tips and advice and, hey, if you see me, come over, I'll look after you. To the points that you all made as well. People who didn't have many friends or didn't have afternoon activities, people were inviting like, hey, we're going to go do this. Hey, we're going to do this. I'm going to be doing a show. Hey, let me add you to my WhatsApp group, or like it was very, very cool. So even if you don't have people or you don't know a lot of people, I found, and that's just not my experience, I saw this happening a lot. People were just so generally inviting to do things outside and give people beer and hey, what are you doing for lunch? Come join us. It was, and I think that's the party vibes and just the good vibes that an event like this. So if you're wondering and sitting on the fence, I've never been to a major tournament, I'm scared that it's like win it or cost people. I hope by this point you've heard it's as far as from the truth as possible. Yeah, people want to win, but people are also here, as Matt said, for a good time.
Yeah, and I think back to the question of the LGBT. I think from all the hobbies like I've witnessed like war games, I think Age of Sigmar like has the most like openly like trans and LGBT, like let's say gay, lesbian, and all that like range of like spectrums across. And I think I always see people like they're very proud to be who they are, and like and everyone loves it. It's just kind of like, hey, that's who you are. Cool. Have a drink with me and let's party.
Speaking of someone who's very proud of who they are, I do have a question from Tomo, friend of the channel. So,
Of course.
how good's that segue, right? So,
yeah,
Tomo
very
asked,
proud of himself.
That was good. That was natural. So Tomo asks, and then I'll pull up some stats in a second. But so, folks, do you ever sit and pity the majority of the field who aren't able to have such excellent TOs like Scott and Tom on a weekly basis, but they only get graced with their presence a few times a year? Now, jokes aside for a second, TO staff was incredible. Scott, Tom, as well as was it Fred who helped as well?
It was Fred, yeah, because he broke his
Fred,
arm. So.
Yeah, Fred helped out of nowhere. Madigan was obviously answering a lot of rules as well. There was people
And
who
she wasn't even TOing; she was playing. So
no. So like the staff, that was incredible. But to take a step back and let's acknowledge the question: do you sit there and feel pity that most of us don't get to enjoy the local SoCal TO community that you get to enjoy?
Yeah.
I really do, honestly. Okay. Tom, I know Tom, he loves himself, so he doesn't need too much of an ego like stroke. But it is very, very cool to me that like someone who is such a prominent figure is so close to where we are. And like he's managing like our RTTs, he's managing every single event in SoCal. And it's like he really is a good person to have at that role. He's very level headed.
do you not come in and more during the stream?
Like he teases a lot, but he's very level headed, he's very mature, very like responsible, and he really does care. Like he spends so much time, you can tell he spends so much time like working on this for the community. So it's cool that like it is a privilege to be so close to him.
Oh, good. So anyone else want to answer Tomo's question, or should we actually talk about LVO?
Yeah, I should jump in on that. It's really it really is nice having good tournament organization. Tom does run a good show. And he's so humble about it too. But he puts together a good pack for the ones of us who read it. And it's always a party with him. Which is strange considering just how like
how British he is.
He's Welsh, thank you.
Wow. Wow. That was offensive.
But no, he's a good guy. He runs a good show. He runs a good tourney, and I've been happy to be involved with it where I have been. And yeah, honestly, I don't know what any other meta actually is like, because I probably do the least travel of any of the lineup here. So I may just be spoiled.
Well, go on, Matt. That was a perfect segue, by the way. So like Matt put a cherry on top, and then segue into meta. You guys are professionals.
Yeah, so I think I remember when I first joined the competitive community in SoCal, like the event scene. It was like end of 2020, or like I guess when things were kind of like relaxing for like restrictions. Tom was like taking it upon himself, because we didn't really have a lot of RTTs or like a big community at the time, to host 2 RTTs Saturday and Sunday back to back every month at a store we have called Comic Quest. And then we just built the scene from there. And then he hosted his first GT at somebody's house. And we call it the Moonshine Open, because there's a lot of moonshine to drink and we just party at the house. And then from there, Old Town, because he tested all of his ideas, like, terrain setup, pack, and everything on us, our scene has just like grown bigger and bigger. And honestly, like, it's amazing just to see how like we've grown from like 10-man, just like 1 or 2 10-man RTTs every month to like 3 or 4 like RTTs and like several big GTs like every like few months. And then a lot of us like travel out for like the game too. So that's like, it's amazing to see that progress. And I think because, Games Workshop and other TOs have seen Tom's progress, that's why they've invited him to like, TO for like travel and TO for like all the other events that he does, because I think, Tom, in his words, he's a perfectionist. So I think that's why he puts so much time, effort, and like his own money to make like, the best Age of Sigmar experience possible. And I know he works a lot with like the GW side when it comes to like, potentially advising things on the event side, maybe game balance and other things like that. And, he's only getting paid. Like, I know when he works at events, he's only getting paid like $15 or minimum wage, like an hour from like SoCal. But, but it's not his main job. He does this as like a fun side thing. So it's really cool. And, but he works at it like a job. So, I think we are, even though Tom probably loves to hear this segment of us just like congratulating him and like everything, but he has definitely, put in the effort and love, towards like not just the SoCal like Age of Sigmar community, but the Age of Sigmar community as a whole. And I think also I want to shout out, we only had about 3 TOs for LVO out of like 350 players, and that is not easy at all. Like, I've TO'd like my own events and everything, not even nowhere close to that scale, and it's just like, by the end of like LVO, I saw like how exhausted Scott and Tom and like Fred Schmidt were. So it's the fact that like they put in like this much effort for us was just like, we're so lucky to have like people that decide that, even though maybe they want to play, they decide to TO instead and just make this like a memorable experience for all of us.
So first off, let's not go any further on this, or his head's not going to get through the door. Scott and Tom did do an incredible job. So, massive testament, but also maybe a reflection point for everyone listening to this is to think about and thank your TO, whether it's the RTT TO, whether it is your GT TO. They do all put a lot of love and sweat and tears, and this is all happening outside of their whatever their job and their family is. So if you can buy them a coffee, if you can buy them a gift as a thank you, if there's a way you can pack up a table for them, because you're right, these people could be playing. These people could be doing anything else other than running a tournament for your enjoyment with literal no benefit to themselves other than what they see happening. So that's probably a reflection point for everyone to thank their TO. It's a thankless task, and it is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that often aren't rewarded. So thank
and
you.
I mean, somebody's got to build the house, right? And that's what the TOs like do. So.
Yeah, spot on. But Trish, you were segueing us into some stats that I thought I'd, to kind of highlight what the LVO was all about. We'll go through this really quickly and kind of share a little bit about what the actual meta was. This is pre-LVO, by the way. So this was Wohammer looking at the 360 odd list that was submitted and kind of what we were expecting going into the field. So I'll go through some of the stats. Maybe you all might call out some interesting points or maybe some things that you might notice. But you'll notice here, first off, from a player experience point of view, you'll see that over half the field who were in attendance was definitely a tournament regular. They had gone to at least 11 tournaments over the last 3 years. So they were kind of counting from a record of people who have gone to tournaments since the inception of third edition, which is 2.5 years at this particular point. Another just over a quarter of them had kind of been 6 to 10, and then about 25% approximately were about kind of newish to the scene where they've gone to their first tournament. So very experienced kind of group that was coming to, again, the biggest tournament in the world. And you can see here that going into that, there was some quite interesting win rates, both from a meta selection point of view, but also the win rate of players. So you'll see, for example, the likes of Daughters of Cain not doing quite well in the global meta, but under the hands of a really skilled pilot, you see the likes of Skaven and Daughters of Cain and Nighthaunt, who aren't kind of normally top tier podium armies, we're still going to catch some people off, which I found really fascinating. Anyone want to add any interesting insights or comments on what they see here?
I think the meta for LVO was a little surprising. Like, you look at that, and I think it was like what only if that's what that's indicating there, only 11 Cities of Sigmar players, which you kind of like would imagine that would be way more represented, but it was actually not that many people, which is even more surprising considering that the top table was 2 of them.
Definitely, when you consider, I think one of the most represented armies was Stormcast. Again, not an army doing well in the meta yet. And you're right, cities were the final 2 on the table. So interesting.
I think a lot of people, there ended up being less cities because a lot of the models just came out, I believe, in November or like December. Like, I know we had the FOMO box come out like in October, but because a lot of the other models, like the Command Corps and others, came out later, I think a lot of people just like probably didn't feel like getting it ready in time. They didn't want to rush their paint job, or they just wanted to take something fun. Because I know, for example, we also have like a lot of ogre players, and I've noticed from the past 3 LVOs, the most representation I usually see is Iron Jaws, ogres, Stormcast, Slaves of Darkness, and other things, because I think a lot of those armies, they're already painted by people, and they're fun, and they're very like straightforward. And especially when a lot of people like just go to Vegas just to like drink and have a good time, I think that's why we never see a meta that we expect. I think Khorne, for example, being popular doesn't really surprise me, because a lot of people have Khorne armies from like first edition, and the fact that they have a play style that people like really vibe with and have a lot of fun. That's why we also saw like a lot of Khorne, because it's who doesn't love taking like hordes of like red demons or like big bloodthirsters or just mortals just rocking it out on like the mortal realms.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, because I've just changed the slides here, and you can see on the right that Stormcast Eternals and Gloomspite Gits were the most represented at 29 players each playing those factions. Blades of Khorne 24, Slaves of Darkness 22, OBR 22 as well. Sylvaneth, Ogre Moor Tribes. You can kind of start to see the breakdown. Flesh Eater Courts was obviously the old book, so no surprise that they were the least represented. But even the likes of like Lumineth Realm Lords down the bottom, there's like it was interesting to kind of see the mix of the meta. And then on the left-hand side, you can see the breakdown of the sub-factions, whether it's Blades of Khorne being the most represented of Reapers of Vengeance, Futhan with IDK, Hammers of Sigmar for Stormcast, Big War being very, very popular from an Auric point of view. And then the kind of breakdown, so you can kind of see either a really interesting mix of sub-factions or very clear dominant meta selections.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is like even with the last slide and this slide, you can see like Age of Sigmar is a very like living, breathing game when it comes to meta. Like every single faction that you could look at and their win rates and their meta win rates, you can, if you are pretty like familiar with the game and how it's going, you can pick out a reason as to why that's like you can pick up 3 or 4 reasons as to why that win rate the way it was. Like Skaven recently hasn't been doing well, but it had a list that was very good, and it has had people have discovered things. It's not just this battle scroll affects everything. People, as time goes and every single other thing in the meta changes, people go, oh, this unit is now good again. It didn't get changes, it didn't get points drops, but it is simply better into something now, and there are less challenges for it. And I think like with Daughters of Cain, I saw a lot of people taking avatar builds, where they took a lot of avatars of Cain, which isn't something like people saw recently. But as like things go from shooting to melee to out of phase damage, like Age of Sigmar is like week to week changing. Like honestly, there are factions that people have been like, this faction sucks, and then a week later they're like, wait, you can do this with it. Oh, and now this is gone. Oh, like it's very cool to see how that changes so often.
And it's like a
Yeah.
living ecosystem almost, because like the other thing that you see is like, okay, this one army comes up in the meta and is really represented. Well, suddenly an army that wasn't doing too well but just so happens to play really well into the one that's becoming overrepresented in the meta, starts to go on the rise, and people are like, what's going on? And it's just interesting to see the interplay of how just the situations that a meta creates can have rippling impacts across the entire field.
I couldn't agree more. It's fascinating, and I was again literally talking to Jeremy about this last night, where especially books that are deep, people are so quick to find the internet list, the one list that rules them all. But there's so much incredible value when you revisit and you look at Jeremy, who won the LVO. There was no Fusilier spam. There was no Knight spam, Cavalier spam. There certainly wasn't any steam tanks in his list. It wasn't like, if you talk to people from Cities of Sigmar, like what the hot unit picks are, he doesn't have many of them, yet it was how incredibly he used his tools to his advantage and found value from units that people weren't picking, or, to the point of like, he's got a lot of witch hunters and things like the Darrel Van Denst, who is great for killing wizards and demons. This is a really good meta pick. You can see you've got Blades of Corn. Everyone's going in Taurian Locusts and, trying to get the Blizzard Wizards or Spellcasting Savants. So you're absolutely right that the meta is constantly shifting, and the Dawnbringer books and the erratas are just speeding that cycle up, which is exciting for list builders. And it's interesting as an LVO watching the metas kind of clash to see who rises to the top. And tournaments are also a lot about luck and the draw. It's not just finding the meta lists and then kind of being able to handle them. Like it's about the draw. A couple of other interesting stats. One maybe doesn't really need to be talked about a lot, but it's interesting to see like army breakdowns. And last year, I remember the LVO, people would, people like Noah Singh were going for army lists at 1890 just to guarantee the triumph, because there was a lot of bravery debuffing and shutting down kind of shenanigans. And you can start to see some of the meta selections on who's standing out. Again, go check out Wohammer if you want to see all of this in all of its glory. But where I started getting really into the weeds and getting excited was to see what were the most popular grand strategies. And this might lead you into some of those unit picks, how people were building out the commands. And then on the next page, some of the more popular unit selections, which I found incredibly fascinating. But, Spellcasting Savant and Overshadow, definitely the two most popular grand strategies. Interestingly, Wa, an Auric one, is third, even above something so generic like Slaughter of Sorcerer. So, again, fascinating when you look at the picks and Shaman of the Chill Lands, Master of Magic, or certain things kind of coming up as the most popular command traits. Any thoughts here? Open the floor up.
I think this handbook grand strategy has become very, very important, and like your lists are much more effective in how you build for it. And like seeing like Wa as the third, it kind of shows how like some factions really kind of have objectively right choices in some sense, right? Like you will see so much representation from one grand strategy, because I think this like time, like this, your selection is, some of them are too niche. Like spellcasting savant is like probably the least niche one. It's kind of just like keep your general alive, right? But then like you have factions that you're like with Overshadow, your battle line's not going to live. Or if you're playing Overshadow, you have to think, if I match into a Giants player, I'm not getting my grand strategy. If I match into a like Bone Reapers player, it's a very high chance I'm not getting my grand strategy. So I think grand strategies interestingly are like almost in a rock paper scissors place right now, where like you realize sometimes you're not getting your grand strat the second you start your game. So I think it's kind of like weirdly made a more variation, like when there's like 400 people around and there's only like one grand strat that kind of sticks out. It's actually very impressive to see like the numbers so low.
I think, for example, so speaking of grand strategies and other things like that, I think outside of Overshadow, a lot of the most popular grand strategies are picked because you can actually just like not have to interact with your opponent that much just to score these grand strategies. Like that's just kind of been the theme of this like general's handbooks, because on one hand the battle tactics and the battle plans are like really good and cool, but I think when you include just because tactics are so much more important in this season and grand strategy is than in other seasons, that's why you see like spellcasting savant, tend the garden, rule the skies, and other things as just like these are like auto includes in a lot of lists, because you can realistically score it most of the time by not having to like interact with your opponent. And then another thing I want to point out is that like for command traits, Shaman of the Chilled Lands, that doesn't surprise me either as the most popular, because it gives you access to Blizzard and Hoarfrost, which are two of the most impactful spells in this meta right now. Like the fact that like let's say you have a wizard, you can give him a War Scroll spell from your book, or a spell lore from your book, and then in addition, he also knows Hoarfrost, or he or she also knows Hoarfrost and Blizzard, so you can flex these on the fly. So it is interesting that like there's all the other common command traits, but you can tell that like what has been the most meta defining grand strategies and command traits based off of this stat. Like if we compare spellcasting savant to like the others, it's not even close compared to how often it's taken.
And it also kind of leads into, when this General's Handbook first came out, there was a feeling that people would be going in and going Warlord and Antorian Acolytes Battalion, right? Go 4 drops, get your extra wizards, get your extra spell cast, get an extra spell on your spells. But what you're starting to notice, and I don't have the stats here, but I know definitely as I was going through lists and reviewing them, it seemed like Battle Regiment is still the one battalion that's ruling them all, thus leading into Shamans of the Chilled Lands to get the extra spell without sacrificing at your drops. So it's a fascinating interplay when these lists start to come together, and there's a lot more things you can get into in the weeds when you look at, Climbing Hand being a Gitz thing, Spellslinger is a Sylvaneth one. You start to kind of unpack and start to see how lists are being created and what might happen, to Taran's point, when worlds collide. And sometimes it's just very hard to do because you see that wrong matchup, that overshadow. Maybe I don't have the DPS check to kill the mega, or going into this, do I need to think about how I do that?
Yeah, people definitely pick battalions based off of the meta, because I remember last LVO, for the very first time, Battle Regiment was completely overshadowed by Bounty Hunters and Expert Conquerors. And like more people last year took high drop than compared to this year, like you're saying, where they took low drop. So it is interesting that like how people prepare for the changes in like list building and everything, which makes it really exciting and like cool to like follow.
And
A lot. Go on, Taran.
I in like an analysis, I think it's very, very dependent on battle reg when there's so much damage in the game. Like right now, it seems like everything hits on 2s and 2s. Everything is a little bit higher rend, or there's a lot more combinations you can take that blow something off the board. When damage is very important and tactics are harder to get, so you need to do more on the board, then turn priority is also very important. Deciding who goes first, or like who goes first and second, and having that slightly higher chance of winning the priority, like battle regiment, is very important. Whereas last GHB, I think sitting on circles and then you didn't have to do too much to get your tactics. It means you don't care if you get doubled, because also there's not much damage. Like there's not as many units that are individual and small that just blow everything up. But right now, I think damage is pretty high in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it leads into some of those choices as well, whether you look on the left-hand side and look at some of the god tier models representing, or god-like, sorry, but they're all not gods, but, some of the most popular choices, Be'lakor going around, seeing Ionis, the new Stormcast Dragon, or Belthanos, the new Sylvaneth character, still seeing a good representation of Croak, still seeing a good representation of Arcan the Black, or the Spirit of Durthu, Catacross, King Broad. It's fascinating to see some of these heroes and their impacts either to list creation, or also maybe being able to handle them on the tabletop. And let's be honest, how many people have good experience now handling an Ionis or handling a Belthanos who dropped during Dawnbringers 3, which is less than 3 months ago. So I'm sure there was a few, not like gotchas, but definitely, how does this thing work? On the right, you then look at some of the most popular choices, whether it's like the War God Prophet appearing in 100% of big wild lists, super dangerous, as Taran was referring to. The popularity of like your Alapexes from IDK, the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. Again, like it's the Pontifex as well. Like that little hero sniping wizard is so bloody good. And then, Fusiliers, again, you can kind of read the screen here, but you start to see like the most common scrolls and what do I need to handle with them and maybe why they're appearing. And yeah. Any commentary here? I mean, we could talk about this forever, but like it's fascinating to see what people did to prepare for this and then how we all respond, which will eventually lead to our lists in a second.
A lot of the common war scrolls are there because like all those scrolls have one thing in common. It's that they're just consistent. They always do their job no matter what. That's why, I'm not really surprised to see like a lot of those scrolls just like being there for those factions because right now with the game where because you really need your tactics and grand strat, you need things to just happen rather than like, let's say, for example, the last couple GHBs where you can just grind and, you're okay with like taking more flexible choices. Right now, the game in the meta rewards you for having consistency because you need to consistently be able to get your battle tactics, grand strat, and make sure things happen. So that's why, most of these lists take command cores, or there's always like a Wargog Prophet because if you ever charge a big Wa army, there's a risk of the Wargog just staring at you and just blowing up you with green lasers. But yeah.
Go on, Trish.
Oh, as a Slaanesh player, I was actually really interested to see that. I mean, I've been using Glutos for a long time, and we'll get into that. But to see him represented in 5 out of 7 lists was really kind of interesting. And I feel like with a lot of this, you can just like, especially with the common war scrolls, it really kind of speaks to the internal balance of certain factions. Like you look at that and it's like, okay, there's a reason command core are in almost 100% of cities lists. There's a reason so many Alapexes are there, or Unfettered Fury Bloodthirsters. Like it makes you realize that like, and it's not always a bad thing because sometimes like the way a faction's built is around particular functionality. But it really gives you an idea for like what's the hinge in these factions right now, like that central fulcrum that you can always kind of expect to see.
I weirdly think for the common war scrolls, it's not a problematic. They all have very unique reasons for being there. Honestly, like I think each one has its own like crazy thing. I think Alapexes are so much there, not because they're the best way to play IDK, but just because there was a sudden change, and now people are like, "Whoa, there's a sudden change. It's a little bit easier to play, and it's kind of easy to carry around." There's like you just take a bunch of them, and that's my list. No thinking about it, just use it. Mega Boss, I think like honestly, Iron Jaws isn't like super meta right now. So the people playing them are just like, this is what I have, and who doesn't want to take a Mega Boss? I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's like anything special. It's just this unit's really cool, and it's the centerpiece of my army. I'm gonna take him. Deaf Riders, they have their unique reason too. They are battle line in a very expensive army, and they're a very cost efficient battle line, and you get a tactic. And then you have some that are offenders, like Pontifex and Command Corps. They're in a little bit of a different situation where it's like those units are so good. You take them in your list because if you aren't, you're being slightly unoptimal. Like Command Corps do every single role in the game. Where some of these, they're just like you can just take them because they're cool, and that's honestly like why they're common.
Or like you need them, like in the like for Death Riders.
I think for me, when I look at some of this stuff, like if I look at the left, I'm super curious on, let's say, for example, Scarbrand, right? Scarbrand is in 15 of the 22-24 corn lists. All right, well, what did that list look like? And obviously there's the Unfettered Fury as well, so there's a lot of commonality here. But also it kind of gets me thinking, what does the other 8 also lists look like, and what are they building around? And the same is obviously true for a lot of those particular lists. And then on the right, especially as someone, and for people who are listening to this, if these are the most common war scrolls, what do I do if I face a Cities of Sigmar list that has Fusiliers? You know, what do I do? Or if I face up against Alapexes that don't have a lot of experience, what do I do? How do I unpack this? And that's I guess the blessing and the curse. If you're super experienced against a Gobblepalooza, it allows you to be able to respond appropriately and maybe unpack the army, or it gives me some guidance to start doing my research and prep. Should I go into any of these? And to Taran's point, not necessarily all problematic. It's just they're common and popular for certain reasons. Slaves doesn't have a lot of offense, especially with speed, and Varangard obviously do an incredible job, and Slap with the double fight, and it can be super tanky. Anyway, super interesting stats. Again, we could be here forever unpacking it, but what I do want to unpack is the list that we brought. So without War and Peace, I guess I'd love to know, Matt, what were you thinking with this list? Like, why this list? What were you trying to achieve? What were you worried about? Give me like the thoughts when it comes to the construction. For the podcast people, I might just read out all your lists, and then I'll get you to talk a little. So Matt took Beasts of Chaos, which was a Dark Walker list. It's a Great Brave Shaman with Hoarfrost. Beasts of Chaos, Zangor Shaman with the Slitherrack Helm and Blizzard. Got a Doom Bull, which was the General with Bestial Cunning and the Bray Blast Trumpet. By the way, desecrating Brayherd was the grand strategy. You had 9 Bulgors, 10 Ungor Raiders, 10 Ungor, 10 Ungor Raiders, 6 Zangor Enlightened, 6 Zangor Enlightened, 10 Ungor Raiders, and then 3 Slangor Fiend Bloods, all coming in at 1990 in a Warlord battalion. So what was the thinking here? How does this work? But more importantly, what were you trying to do going into the LVO?
So I've been pretty much playing this list for the past 6 months, ever since June or July, when they did the last battle scroll where like they kind of nursed some things in Beast of Chaos. Because before I ran 12 Bulgors, but then because points just got too expensive, I was just like, all right, because the meta like for a long time was OBR, KO, Soul Blight, and just like things are really hard to kill. How do I answer these things? And then it just came down to the conclusion of, oh, I have 9 Bulgors. And the reason why I picked 9 Bulgors is that like their attack profile is 4s and 3s, Ren 1, but Ren 2, and then later on Ren 3, 2 damage each, 6s to hit, do 2 mortal wounds each. It's just a boatload of attacks that if they get on top of something, and not to mention they do impact hits, they just kill most things in the game. However, because a lot of things, if you let just 9 Bulgors run around, they'll like end the game on their own. The opponent has to focus everything onto the 9 Bulgors. And then that works out for me because even if I lose a 9 Bulgors after they come down, they at least do their job of being like a distraction while the rest of my army scores. And Beast of Chaos is an ambush army that excels at being glass cannons, and they excel at, having enough bodies to like score. So while I have, 9 bulls for like creating much of a distraction around for like the opponent, I have like all my Ungor Raiders and then my Ungors. And then in addition, after, the 9 bulls and raiders soften up like an army, I have my 2x6 enlightened because to do cleanup, because what they do is they stop command points within 3 inches. So for 180 points, you get like 19 attacks at 2 damage each. You cannot like spend any command points at all at defense. Like they're just like, it's because Beast of Chaos is an army that like the longer the game goes on, I lose more of my stuff. I'm trying to essentially maximize the amount of like points I score, and because Beast of Chaos has a lot of easy access to battle tactics, and we have a pretty reliable Grand Strat. Like all of my games, I usually get 4 or 5 tactics with Grand Strat, even in my losses, because I can just play the map so well. And because Beast of Chaos play like no other army in the game, people have to deploy differently, and it rewards the pilot for being, just making a plan. Because essentially, my actual deployment phase is the second battle round where I bring down everything, and this lets me play mind games with my opponent where like they don't know what my like general plan is. And because I've like played Beast of Chaos the past 4 years, and I've played a lot with like the newer Beast of Chaos book, it allowed me to I felt like this was my best chance of like doing the best I could at LVO. And because I knew Cities was going to be there and a lot of other shooting armies like Karajan Overlords, and then not to mention popular steam tanks, because we have a local named Kyle Calic that helped engineer the steam tank tech with Gavin. Because I knew what was like coming, just like, okay, this is my best chance to kill like steam tanks on a 2-up save or a 1-up save with just a boatload of potential mortal wounds, while I have better tactics and grand strat than City does just to like score. And while my actual record, I ended 3-2, not what I was hoping, especially because I was very successful like throughout the whole ITC like season. I did play a lot of like tough competition. I had a lot of really good and great close games with Anthony Trentinelli and Tom, who's playing Skaven with the Bells list, and then Thomas Ling on Nurgle. So like I said, but still, I had a great time, and I was really happy to have like taken this list that I really know. Because if you really want to do well at LVO, my biggest advice is that you take a list that you've like practiced with for like how much ever time or how many practice games you've gotten to. And to me, this was just like the list to take, because outside of 9 Bulls, everything in my list trades. Like I have a Zangor Shaman with Blizzard, you get +3 to cast, and then I have Ungor Raiders once per game. They can shoot off board and just clear your screens. And then my Brave Shaman can give Horror Frost to like Enlighten or Slaying Gores just to like buff them up and just like clear like other parts of the board. So yeah, that's my Beast of Chaos list.
We'll talk about the actual games after we go through the list, because one of the things that I'll say before I get to Trish next is there's a lot that how do I say this? There's a lot that goes into winning an event. Obviously, practice and reading the meta, and obviously your micro decisions. Luck of the draw is a massive component. Getting the right players at the right time. Sometimes the matchups can be incredibly tough, and get you at the wrong time. There's a lot of mental endurance that needs to happen. These are long days. You're on your feet for a long time. As Matt's already talked about, there's Vegas activities. So, and I'll explain why I bring my list is because I like going out till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and running my brain fart Gloomspite Kits list. I would not function on day 2. So I try to simplify it a little bit, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into a top performance at an LVO. So there's no shame going 3-2 or 2-3 or 1-4. Sometimes it's just luck of the draw, but the most important thing is you go 5-0 on the fun. That's all we ask for. Right?
Yeah, definitely got the 5-0 on like the fun factor. So I mean, that's just the important thing.
Then you won LVO by going 5-0 in the fun factor. Trish, speaking of fun, talk to me more about the I was going to say Gloomspite Kits because I read the G on Godseekers. I'm like, no, we're talking Slaanesh here. It is Slaanesh, Godseekers, self-desired grand strategy. Selfish Desires is the grand strategy. You got Glutos with the Paths of the Dark Prince, Lord of Pain, who's the general, Speed Chaser, the command trait, and the Girdle of the Realm Racer. The Shard Speaker of Slaanesh with Hoarfrost. You've got some Seekers. You've got 2 units of the Twin Souls, a unit of Fiends, a unit of Fiend Bloods, I think reinforced. The Fiends and the Fiend, they're both reinforced, right? And then you got some Bliss Barb Seekers, again, wrapped up 1990 in a Battle Reg.
Yeah, so this isn't your dad's Slaanesh list. And in fact, it's really not anybody's Slaanesh list. I was actually the only Godseekers list at the tourney. And I was proud to finish actually second out of all the Slaanesh players with I think it's 2-2-1 is basically what how that's written. Nobody can agree, but 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. But the way this build works is it's debuffs. It's all the debuffs. So I want very early for my opponent to be at -2 to hit, which for the people who aren't aware of how that works, it's basically a -1 to hit with a buffer for things like all out attack. And the fiends themselves, not to be confused with the fiend bloods, can actually get to -3 to hit at best. So that cancels out even faction abilities that can give +1 to hit, and -1 to wound in melee. And so this whole build is basically about being able to take a charge to the face, survive, and be deceptively survivable, because most people look at Slanesh and they think, oh, squishy archers. I'm going to roll over that. And then countercharge with really hard-hitting stuff against opponents that have been debuffed for their saves, for their attacks. And it's really kind of like a constrictor snake. It sort of envelops, gets into position, and then strikes and slowly grinds down my opponent by taking out key pieces.
I like it. Anything else that we should know about the list? Like I like the theory, but because you're right, like Godseekers, there's not a lot of Godseekers out there. Pretenders has been the one that's been probably the most popular for a long time. People might call it NPE, just all the triple commands of Unleash Hell and all that good stuff.
I've played Pretenders here and there. I actually played it in doubles and it was horrible. It just doesn't work with my play style. I like to be tricky. I like to have some movement stuff. So that pre-round movement with Godseekers, you basically at the start of each battle round, after priority before command points, get to move D3 units D6 inches. Can't end in combat though. We're not Khorne. So that allows you to kind of react to a double. So you may be in one position and your opponent's like, oh man, I just won priority. I'm going to take that double. And you're like, cool. And then you move stuff out of position to where like the advantage that your opponent saw is no longer going to be there. Or like, you're in a threat range and then suddenly you're not. Or, you have a unit threatening now with some melee debuffs that wasn't there before. So I like that flexibility. The Girdle of the Realm Racer is actually more of a tech piece with the Lord of Pain. It was actually something that Matt clued me into. Since the Lord of Pain's bubble is only when they're contesting an objective, and it's wholly within 12 inches, you can use that 6-inch pile in to sort of shift as you need to make sure that things fall under that bubble. And rarely did I actually use it to get into combat.
I like it. I like it. Again, like not a lot of people talking about this, but still a lot of great tech to still be discovered, which is why I love this game. Anything else, Trish, before we get into Taran's list?
Nah, I think that's pretty much it.
We'll hear the stories about the games very shortly. Taran ran the Khorne Reapers of Vengeance. Grand strategy, bring me a worthy skull. Strap in, there's a lot of units here. I wonder if you want Blood Tie, but you got a Blood Secretor, a Slaughter Priest with the Blood Blind and Unholy Flames, has obviously gone Warlord to get himself an extra prayer. You got yourself Drom, which has the Blood Sacrifice and Bronze Flesh. You've got a Bloodthirst of Unfettered Fury with the Agrath, King of Blades. Sounds like some dodgy television selling of knives over like, I don't know, Damtel or whatever it is. Fedra, who is a wonderful ally. So curious on why you bring Fedra. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You got the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster, who's the General, Firebrand, Halo of Blood, Killer Instincts, and the Heal Universal Prayer. 2 units of Blood Reavers. You've got Drom's friends, the Gore Chosen. You've got yourself 20 Blood Warriors, 5 Godsworn Hunters, 6 Furies, Icon, Axe, and Hex Gorgeous Skull. So all the prayers. 1990 double Warlord. What's going on here?
There is a lot going on here. This honestly list was not theory tested a lot. For like the last couple months before LVO, like Warhammer was not on my mind at all. I had not been thinking about it. I had not been playing, so I had to scrap together a list. Typically, I run Triple Thirster. I run Scarbrand, but I was kind of looking at the meta and what I think I was going to be going into and what I think is going to win me games. And what wins me games is being able to cripple the opponents to the fact where they cannot score, they cannot get tactics, they cannot sound points, and to get every tactic, every grand strat, and primary. Primary is obviously very important. And I guess this is like a list that has like 3 or 4 different things packaged together. One of the big packages is the double thirster combo. The double thirsters, they don't hit very hard. They're kind of consistent, but like they consistently do like 9 damage. But they're very big toolkits. The Wrath of Corn Thirster can fight together with the Unfettered. He fights first, and then the Unfettered fights with him. The Unfettered removes wards. And when the book first came out, I wasn't super sold on the removing wards. But that's because in that meta right then, I would only ever see a 6-up ward. But like 4 or 5 books came out where wards were very important. Slanesh has a lot of wards. OBR, Soul Blight, OBR being a very big one with their 4-up mortal wound ignore. So those guys, they are very like individual. They run around a lot. They work together. They run around. They can kind of tag team a point and be able to take it back from people. If you get them both together, sometimes they can kill like decently sized models. Like I wouldn't put them into a Kragnos or a Catacross, but I'd put them into maybe a Scar. Like if I wanted to get a Scarbrand or a Keeper of Secrets, they would go together. The other package in this is the Blood Secretor and the 20 Blood Warriors. Blood Warriors are very tanky, but less in the traditional sense and more, they're like spiky. You hit them, and they have 2 different abilities where they do mortal wounds and reflection. They're 6s to save, and when they die, they roll 2 dice. So if you wipe an entire Blood Warrior unit, on average, you take around 15 mortal wounds from the murder rolls, which are a mortal mechanic, and then you take a bunch more depending on your profile. And then with that comes the Blood Secretor, who 4-up rallies them. These units, I think it just worked perfectly in Khorne to have one of them. They can die, and if they have one model left, lots of armies have 4-up rally. 4-up rally is annoying. 4-up rally means you need to finish the unit off. Otherwise, I'm bringing them all back in the next 2 turns, and I'm tying you down with them. I'm not there for damage. They're there to be annoying. They're there to be a distraction, and if they're sitting on a point and you can't stop them from sitting on a point, well, good for me, right? And then Thedra is a battle tactic. She gets cast magical dominance. Khorne does not have amazing tactics right now, but they're all very doable. It's very matchup dependent, but Thedra gets me an easy battle tactic. I put her in the corner and I say, cast a spell. Sometimes, most of the time, it works. Then with her, she comes with a Guardsworn Hunt. It's very cost efficient to have 2 units packed together that only costs X amount, which is why I took Drum too. He has little friends. They don't do too much, but they give him a ward, and what they do is important. Just another unit basically to have on the board. And then the Godsworn Hunt and the Furies, they just get me surrounded, destroy. Like I put them in the corner, I'll move them up. The Furies are a little bit more cool, I guess. They can retreat instead of fighting. So in terms where there's a lot of confusing activations, there's always a chance that they won't kill the Furies, and I'll move them over. They'll take a point from the back. And then Khorne is, again, very dependent on prayers. This list is trying to do as much stuff outside of the combat phase as possible. It's trying to pin you in. It's trying to stop you from moving. It's very much like a controlled list. To me, the biggest downfall of it was the grand strategy. I very rarely got it. It was very hard to get the grand strategy, especially when you have people who really know how it works. The grand strategy is bring me wherever goal. Your opponent has to pick a hero, which is makes it infinitely harder. They pick a hero of their choice to be and I have to kill it, and my general still has to be alive. My general is not super tanky, so there's always a chance he dies, and there's always a chance that I've played someone who just hey, here's an impassable terrain, here's my little hero. Okay, I'm down 100 points, but you'll never kill it. Or just random things, or you can't kill the hero. There's probably the biggest downfall of the list, but I'm happy with my result. I went 4-1 with it. And everything was close. I didn't feel like there was a blown out of the water anywhere. Just little things, it's a dice and matchup game. You can't be perfectly fit into everything.
No, awesome. Thank you. And mine will probably go as long as yours, Taran, because my list is super complex. So I went King Broad Stomp. Gargants are a very good army for the LVO. One, they're easy to transport. Two, it means I can go out till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and still rock up 8 o'clock in the morning fresh and just play the game. So the army is Overshadow, which is obviously kill the battle line, which can be challenging. You've got 2 gate breakers. One is the general, one has Big Eater. Big Eater is going to allow me to heal my Gargants that are wholly within 12 inches of the general if they kill an idiot. So basically, the whole strategy is stand on circles and stay on circles as long as possible. King Broad has a 5-up ward if he's within 3 inches of a Mega Gargant and has some heal and some extra rend and some cool little prayers that he can issue out. The War Stomper is a nice little horde kind of clearer. Arcane Tome, no surprise to get myself a Mystic Shield and Magical Dominance. And the other Gatebreaker is the other Gatebreaker. So 19. Oh, ignore the double Warlord. That is a copy and paste error. There is no battalions here. Ignore that, folks. And 1990 is the list. So it's a lot of fun. But I had the weirdest draw. My run, and I did go 3-2. Not what I was expecting. I was expecting a 4-1. But I had the weirdest draw I could have ever. If you asked me what matchups would I have played, I would never have picked this. Started with Gits, then went into Suns, then went into KO, then went into Iron Jaws. Oh, sorry, Ogres, then Iron Jaws, or other way round. Like, I played everyone in Destruction and KO. Like, didn't play Khorne, who was the most popular. Didn't play Stormcast, who was the most popular. Like, most of those armies that are most popular, basically it was who could win priority in turn 2 and go and smash. And I won 50% of those priority rolls. So really, really fun games. I really enjoyed it. But playing all 4 Destruction, who all just wanted to charge and smash, it was crazy luck of the draw. Crazy. But that's how it goes.
Yeah,
But
LVO pairings are like, because there's so many people, you never get what you think you're gonna get. Like I like literally teched my list and like practice a lot to go against cities and like KO and like other shooting armies. And what I literally played over the weekend was 2 Slanesh melee lists, ogres, Skaven bells, and then Nurgle. Like I was not expecting that at all. So it's kind of like
there was one tournament I went 3 out of 5 games into Petrifix Elite OBR at the height of Petrifix Elite. Sometimes you completely dodge the meta armies. It's just, and this is the thing about tournaments, it's about knowing your list and doing really well, but you can't over index on the meta because you just may not play those meta armies. And in my case, didn't play any cities. I actually think I'd be okay against cities. I've had a couple of practice games into cities and I've been pretty good into them. It's not really something I've had to worry about, but just didn't play into them. So let me ask you, and Taran's disappeared. I think he's been sucked into the blood. He's been sucked.
I think he's fixing his wallpaper.
He's
No,
been taken
it took me away for some reason. Maybe the brightness. Got
Filming live from the void.
Summoned. You did not do the thing for Khorne very well. So let me ask you then, maybe a round robin. What was our favorite games? Maybe I'll throw it to Trish first. Trish, what was your favorite game out of the 5 that you played?
It's so hard to pick, but I think it's a tie. One, I don't need to explain much. It was against, I believe his name was Jeff from the Austin Weird Knobs. Just absolute treasure, wonderful guy. And that was my last game, and it was these were actually both games against Khorne. So going to the first game that tied for it, I played this guy by the name of Abel, who is very new to the tournament scene. I think this was actually his first GT ever. And he had a really actually decent looking Khorne list and gave me a really good game. It it was centered. It used Valkia. It was very aggressive. But he took. I ended up winning, but he took it like a champ. Because honestly, I think he was there to learn, and I think he's going to be. He'll be higher up in the meta before we know it.
Awesome.
And then the last game was again against Khorne, and I learned some important lessons about splitting my force against Khorne, and how to be how to defeat myself with my terrain placement before the game has even begun.
Taran, what about yourself? Favorite game?
My favorite game had to be against Alex Gonzalez. It was a Khorne mirror match. It was 5th round. I recently lost to him in a very embarrassing manner where I didn't get the Fountains of Frost back, and I placed all my priests on 1 point, and then they all blew up turn 1. Like, every single priest died, and I was like, oh no. Like, that was just sad. Like, my entire army has died, and he hasn't even touched me. So I was determined to win this one. And I know Alex decently well. Like, we talk a lot. We're on the same team now. And it was just an amazing game. I think we both made very good decisions. And sometimes you do that, and you're like, okay, now it is in the hands of someone. It is not in my hands. It's like in the hands of fate. And like, there are so many times where it just came down to like a random roll. Like turn 5, it was and like generally tied. And I needed to get my grand strat, and we both got our grand strat. I think he would have won, but if I got my grand strat and he didn't, he would have lost. And my bloodthirster, I had to charge him into a herald and kill the herald for bring me a worthy skull. And his unfettered couldn't get into my bloodthirster, but his unfettered was within 8 inches. And the unfettered has a rule where on a 4-up, you take units around it take D3 mortal wounds, and my grand strat was my general had to live, and he had 1 wound left at the end of the game. Like, we were final end of combat phase. Nothing else matters other than this 4-up roll. And then also, he did Slaughter of Sorcery, and what I did was I don't need my wizard. I won defender. I put an impassable terrain in the corner, and I put my wizard right like in the corner of that. And like turn 5, he was able to get 3 dogs into my wizard, and so it was just 2 things mattered. Like, we were just rolling to see could the dogs kill the wizard, and it didn't. And then could he roll a 4-up? Like, if he rolled a 4-up, I think it would have either been a tie or like I lose by like 1 point. And it was like super amazing. Like, we're sweating at the end, and like I was just like closing my eyes, like, oh my god, is he gonna roll it? And he rolled like a 2, and I was like, ooh, we hugged it out. It was a very, very fun game, and I'm glad it was like my last game of LPO.
That's awesome. Matt?
I think before I go into my favorite game, to give some context about the rivalry that like Taran has. So between Taran and Alexander Gonzalez, like I think there's a lot of like fun trash talk about who's the better Khorne player, who writes the better list and everything. And then the first time they played at an event, at a team's event, Taran was on my team for context. I told him that, hey, you should read how Fountains of Frost works. And he's like, okay. He doesn't read, and then he loses all his praise. And that we almost lost the round against Alex Gonzalez's team because of that. And I just had to like spank Taran a little bit after that. And then, now when they played at LVO, he took it over Alexander Gonzalez. And now they have like a rivalry. They're like 1-for-1 right now. So, we got a really cool like little storyline,
All right,
trash talk is fun.
We've got to televise the best of 3 finals, right? This is like the NBA playoff season. Like,
and there's a bunch of funny things. Alex had to use a paper skull altar instead of a real. Like, we had to trace my skull altar, and he had to use that because someone was playing on stream, but they had a 3D printed skull altar, and the 3D printed skull altar was like this big. Like, Tom came over, was like, "Can you use this?" And like, no, like it's massive. Like, this is you're putting like a massive impassable over. So we had to use paper altars.
And GW was not going to put. You had to, if you're going to play on stream, you have to have GW models. So that's hilarious. Matt, what's your favorite game?
My favorite game was actually my loss against Anthony Trentinelli. we've known each other for like a couple of years because we talk a lot on the AOS Coach Discord. We've talked a good amount on the AOS Team America Discord, and also I met him for the first time last year in Nova, where we were drunk with Dayton, just hanging out, eating like tacos or like I don't remember what food it was, but we were just having a good time. But I've never actually played a game versus him. So when I think it was GW and Tom approached me to be like, "Hey, do you want to play on stream versus Anthony Trentinelli?" And I'm just like, "Hey, even though like every game I played on stream I've lost, I was like, you know what, let's take a good opportunity, and I get to play my boy, and we're gonna have a good time." So like, and when you play, so even though like my like tournament record with BOC has been like pretty good over like the past year, Anthony Trentinelli is like, in comparison for like player skill, he's like a legendary player because he wins events a lot, not with like meta armies. He wins it with like unconventional like lists and like things all the time because he like has a certain style how he likes to play. I think LVO is the very first time he's taken the meta list with like the bells and the Skaven. So when we played everything, the first one or two turns for me was pretty good, but I noticed the caliber of player he was when I made a single pile in error, it actually costed me the game because I got a little bit too close to some clan rats. So the clan rats locked my 9 Bulgors in after they killed the bell when I pulled the bell away from the clan rats. And then because of that, because I couldn't redeploy because they were locked in combat, 15 Sensibilities went in and they did like literally 100 damage because it was like 70 like 5 attacks going into 9 Bulgors. Kind of a nutty, it was funny to see, but because like I didn't make any like obvious errors. It wasn't like because when you play against like someone of that caliber, if you make like a tiny like mistake, they just really know how to punish it. And I could never really come back from that game because of it. And even though I lost, like Anthony, I had a great time playing him. We were like both, reminding each other of like things and everything. It was just like it's a game that I like, for like people have a perception of like top table like game experience. Maybe it's not the greatest, but like and honestly, one of the blessings of Age of Sigmar is that like most of the time, top table like between like the competitive players usually is like a great experience because like nobody wants to win the game on like a gotcha or anything. They want to win the game by proving that they're the best player that they are by just playing as clean as possible. And like I got that experience and I learned a lot from like that little mistake that I carried to my other victories later on in LVO. So, thank you, Anthony Trentinelli, for giving me like a really fun game, despite, him eventually blowing me out later in that game. But, there's always lessons to be learned in your losses. Cause like, it's good to win and everything, but you don't actually get better at the game until like, you lose in that fashion. And I, was very grateful for like, having that game.
Well, it's in those losses that you remember, and you'll carry forward those like I will never do that again. And it's incredible when you do get to watch the top players. Right, I had the pleasure of getting to watch them all during the World Championships in Atlanta because obviously I was a part of the TO stuff. But I could sit there and watch 86 of the world's best players playing their game. Watching all the little micro things that were happening and yeah, you're right. Like they are good because they're well practiced and they are in the weeds of their micro decision, not because they're trying to catch people out. But to answer my own question, my favorite game would be a game against Jeremy. So Jeremy Huck, I apologize.
Yeah, Jeremy Huck from he's on the Big Chungus team.
Correct, but more importantly, it was a meat fest. It was meat slapping meat. It was Gargants versus Gargants, and there's no game that I've wanted to be able to colossal slam and do my wrestling moves more than this game. But we're both idiots who ran King Broad Stomp and sacrificed our colossal slam and all our wrestling moves. I lost that game by 2 points. It was a game that I lost at turn 2 priority, but it was an awesome game. Basically, it was 4 Mega Gargants versus 4 Mega Gargants. Because of that T2 priority, he was able to lift one of my Gargants, so it then became 4-on-3. I returned 3-on-3. He won priority 3-on-2, 2-on-2, and eventually became a 2-on-1, and I lost it by 2 points. Credible game. it was just a lot of fun, just Gargant smashing Gargants. I think it was asked. I think Tomo was trying to get it on stream. I don't think GW were interested in two Gargant armies smashing each other, but we just laughed. We laughed our ass off the whole game. It was just. I mean, I had a lot of cool games, right? You know, I got to go into Andrew Hare and his ogres. It was just like all the ogres on Stonehorns and Thunder Tusks. I got to go into a double cabbage and all the piggies Iron Jaws. Again, that was just slapping in the middle. I played a troll squig list. It was a lot of slapping in the middle. So a very, very heavy destruction meta. But it was just a lot of fun. That's what I expect from LVO. Just good times, laughs, drinks, celebrating each other's victories and commiserating the poor dice rolls or, you know, the craziness that happens. Cool. All right. That's our favorite games. Is there anything funny that kind of happened over the weekend, either on the tabletop or, you know, something completely unexpected or...
There was a lot of funny things that happened. I think I will start off with so it was I think Friday night. It was, you know, all four of us. I think I don't know if you were there, Trish. Were you there at Dino's with us, Trish? This time?
Oh,
it was Friday night. I don't think you
yeah.
were there this time.
No, I was there at Dino's. I sang Misfits.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, you were there. So we were all at Dino's, and then we were all like singing karaoke and everything. You know, just having it. It wasn't as crazy as last year, but it was like definitely more chill and everything. So after, at some point, I was like, "Hey, I'm craving tacos." So I was already driving Coach and Taran. So like, you know, let's go get tacos because Anthony here was recommending us to go to this taco place that he found.
Taco El Gordo, best tacos in Vegas. I think I had it 3 times.
Yeah, so like, you know, it was like at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I don't remember, but we went out like really late there, and the lines were just like packed, incredibly crowded, and we all had to wait in line for like a while. So then after we all got our tacos, you know, I was going with like Anthony, Taran, and my friend Evan. So after the 3 of us get tacos, we're waiting for, like, I was walking by Taran wearing like my really nice coat because, you know, when I go out like to do non-Warhammer related stuff, I like to like dress up and like have a good time. I just see this guy, like, I'm just gonna pretend like this is the tray of tacos. Like, he was just like this, and like in context, Taran was really drunk because we got him a lot of drinks. So he was just kind of like staring at the ground like this, and then he just goes, and then the tacos just like spill everywhere on the floor. Everyone's just staring at him like, you know, what are you doing? Like, he was just like so like out of this world. Where like it just kind of happened. Like, and then I think it, you know, I like some of the people that were working at the store, like they helped clean. Like, they were just kind of like laughing at Taran. They're like asking if he's okay. And then, you know, not only does he like, you know, they help him clean, they also give him like literally like 5 free tacos. So like, you know, little scammer right here.
And I hit the floor once. Meal.
And how did you avoid the LVO vid?
Strong brown immune system.
Eating floor tacos has clearly given him the internal strength he needs to fight COVID. Trust me, Trish, trust me, I sat there with judgment, and he just sat there mindlessly eating his 9 tacos that mostly got for free, and I'm like, dude, we just go. Like, it's 3 in the morning.
Also the best part too was that like he was just like rambling about like I don't remember what the topic was about, but like he was just like, yeah, he was talking about like, so in America we had this like, growing up we had this like DARE program where like, oh, say no to like weed and drugs. It didn't really work, but I think Taran was just rambling about it, and I just see Coach just like eating his tacos just like this the whole time, just like, because I think at some point Taran just starts saying nonsense, or like he just changes the topic because he was really drunk the whole time. And I think, you know, that was like one of my favorite experiences at LVO, because like I could not like tell what Anthony's like reactions or like what he was thinking at that moment. Just like we basically had to like babysit like Taran, just like he's having this like meltdown.
It was 3 o'clock. I wanted to go to bed. I'm like,
you loved it. You loved it.
Like, can we go? Can we go?
Yeah, and then also another moment too. Like, was that like I think literally the day after too, like we were literally talking about the tacos thing in like the elevator, and then Taran was carrying a beer and he just spills his beer all over his like container and everything, and then in front of like other people in the elevator.
So
this woman's in the elevator, and like we were being kind to her, like there was 3 of us with all our Warhammer stuff, and we were trying to make space. And then out of nowhere, as the elevator's going up, Taran's drink is just like spilling all over the floor. He has no awareness because it was sitting on a carry case. That was
no. So
you can't take this child anywhere.
I have this jacket, right? And I don't have the hands to carry everything. And this jacket has a front pocket. So I put the beer in my front pocket like this. And as I do it, I tell myself, like, I'm going to spill this beer. Like, there's no way it's staying on. And I just look down at my models. And because my beer's in my front pocket, I lean down and I just watch like a waterfall of the thing just pouring down all over the models. Clumsy person. Like,
I just see Anthony just look at Taran and he's just like looking at me. He's like, we can't take this guy anywhere.
Children.
You want to take me everywhere because you love me. It's true.
Children. Trish, what about yourself? Any fun things either happen at the tabletop or outside of the gaming experience?
I now regret leaving Dino's as early as I did. Apparently, should have gotten tacos with you guys. But magical experience and testament to the rave energy that AOS seems to have at GTs, especially LVO. There was a delightful individual that was cosplaying a Blissbarb archer that was there with someone who was playing Slaanesh. They had just this little group that went, but only one of them was playing. I got this bracelet that they had put together, and it was a magical moment when I realized that the acronym for Hedonites of Slaanesh was HOSE. So that was fun. But that's just a wonderful little thing, is that, like, you get all this random stuff going on. People put together like treat goodie bags. I got like 2 or 3 of those. Dayton was cruising by. It's like, try these chips. They're Canadian. And I'm like, sure. And they were amazing. It's less like one thing and just like the culmination of all the little things.
Taran, anything that you'd add to that? By the way, I'm going to add on to Trish in a minute, but Taran, I'll give you a chance to maybe anything that happened not to you that you'd call out.
Redeem yourself, Taran.
I don't know. I think I might have had the worst performance of the weekend in terms of being a laughing stock. I don't actually remember much like else. I just remember like I thought I was speaking perfect Spanish to these workers, and looking back, I was like probably saying nothing. I was probably like making up words. In my head, I was doing a great job though.
You were very confident at Taco del Gordo about your fluent Spanish and why you got so many incredible extra tacos. Maybe they just feel sorry for you.
Yeah, they're like, who is this guy? Probably. I mean, that's the highest likeliness. I don't think I charmed them into giving me extra tacos. Yeah, I don't particularly. That was probably the funniest.
You must have been just drunk the whole weekend, just to like.
No, definitely not. I think that was like the one night I actually drank.
I drank astoundingly little this LVO by comparison, except for that last round of doubles. that was the time. I don't even know if we put in.
We also went drank at the Speakeasy like the last night, and Will got us his like double shot tequilas. I was like, oh god, we are in for like an adventure. Drinking
with Will is a time. It's an experience everyone should get to have at least once in their life.
That Saturday night was definitely one of my favorites, going out to Old Vegas with you guys and meeting up with the Corsairs and being at the random strip in the end, and having cigar with Ben's cigar and Chris Hernandez hat.
The cowboy hat, yeah.
The cowboy hat. I look pretty good in that cowboy hat with the cigar. I feel like an oil baron from Texas.
Yeah, I was really happy that they invited us out. Like, I didn't really have a hard plan for like Saturday night. But then when the Corsairs invited us out, we met up with them, and it was just like constant drinks. We were just like constant bar hopping, and then at some point, Tough Crowd joined us, and we found in this bar we were like drinking at, we found like a little like goth like bar slash club. So a lot of us just like raided like the goth scene. I don't think they appreciate us being there. They probably weren't. They didn't look very happy. But we
It
were
was
all
like
having a very good time.
I
Trish,
instantly regret not being there.
Trish, it was like the size of a bedroom. Like it was this random bar that looked like a Canadian type of like there was a fire in the middle and it was all wood. And then towards the back near the toilets, there was this bedroom sized, and it was like this random goth nightclub in the back that you would never notice. And like it was like the Cure type, like electro punk kind of goth vibes. It was like super bizarre, but again, this kind of goes back to what we said at the start, is about just all the randomness that just happens if you're open to it in Vegas. And I'm going to keep talking because I think I'm just cutting Trish a little more with the lack of tacos and goth nightclubs. But
What
to
am I
what you
doing
mentioned,
with my life?
well, you missed out. I think, like for me, like
Apparently.
some of the most fun stuff is those little random stuff, right? As you mentioned, I think the Andersons, like Michelle and John, were handing out like these Czech mixes, and like they were delicious. Dayton, to your point, was handing out chips. I was handing out like Tim Tams and cookies and stuff, and people were giving out drinks. And Carson gave me like a 1 liter jug of Canadian syrup, and like this all this like free flowing love and just random. I told my wife, she's like, "Why have you got a liter of syrup?" I'm like, "Why not? It's from Canada. It's delicious." But again, all around, I think what I'm trying to show here is it's more than just the 5 games of Warhammer. This is this incredible community spirit that I really appreciate, and is why I keep coming back. So to wrap things up, maybe I've got a couple of burning questions, because we could sit here and go through all of our games. We really could, and we'd be here for 10 years. But I know Matt has a disco that he has to go and like do some bust out and moves. That's why he's got the gun show happening here. But now that the LVO season's wrapped up, the ITC season is wrapped up, what's next? Is there any particular events that you've got on the calendar? Are you thinking about continuing your faction and just tweaking the list after the battle scroll? Is it something that you're now inspired to pick up a new army? Taran, I'll go to you first. What's your plans, at least for the next 6 months, for this General's Handbook?
Oh man, the next 6 months are probably not. I'm very restricted in seasons, based off school, honestly. So I want to see the battle scroll first of all. Like that's like the number. Like it's so hard to build lists not knowing like is this list gonna survive. Um, I've started painting a Skaven army just because I like adore them. Like I just started painting them. They're on my desk. But I think it's very dependent on battle scroll. I want to have Skaven as like a hobby army, and then can you probably continue playing Corn? Like I want to shoot for that top ITC Corn. I want to shoot for like I think if I go to GTs, like I'm not comfortable with any other army other than Corn right now. This summer there's a bunch of events. Old Town Throwdown is probably the biggest one I always look forward to every year. There's multiple Old Town Throwdown events. They're run in SoCal, but people come from, like all around the US because they're just so amazing and so popular. Um, then then maybe some of the GW Opens. Um, I'm thinking of Tacoma specifically. It's like not too far. Fun events. Those are the big. Honestly, Old Town Throwdown is the big one I'm thinking about. Some smaller RTTs, and then just been tinkering around with some things. I really want to play ogres, but like just like at a RTT, like ogres and Kragnos with all lead belchers, and I think it's like a nasty list. It's the secret sauce of this GHB.
All right, stay tuned on that secret sauce. Matt.
So I've been playing Beast of Chaos for the past, I guess since 2018. Like I've made that army a lot, and now I finally accomplished my goal of getting best Beast ITC. And it was fun chasing it for like a whole year, and then I also chased it last year, but then I lost very narrowly to Noah Singh because he won LVO with Beast. So now that like I've accomplished my goal, I actually want to like diversify like my own like play experience, and I own like most armies in the game outside of KO because I like deals, and I found a lot of deals where like people sell like 3K armies for like 200, $300. So, and I think the army that's really captivated my interest a lot lately is the new Flesh Eater courts. I've been playing a lot on TTS, and I really enjoy the models. And I think I'm going to do a kit bash of like a Factonia of like a dark like fantasy like kind of like vibe going into it. So I'm really interested in doing that, and because I think besides, even though like that is probably gonna be my main army coming up this season, I plan to play a lot of different armies I own, like Gits and everything, just to diversify like my own skill as a player, and then some of my own personal plans include going to Nashville teams next weekend, hosted by Jacob Berry. I'm playing on a team with Gavin, Jacob, Brandon, and Scooter. So like it's gonna be a fun time. Like our team comp is Iron Jaws, Morgas OBR, which I'm playing, Steam Tanks, and Gavin playing Sons of Behemoth with Kragnos. So it's like we're just gonna go in, drink some moonshine, and have a good time. And then I think possibly if I could squeeze time next month, maybe Adepticon.
Awesome. Trish, where are you at?
Right now, just kind of cruising, waiting for that battle scroll. It's hard to, like, list-wise, it's hard to plan anything without knowing what's going to happen, especially with Slaanesh, where it's like either we're going to go down because they noticed, or we're going to go up because they remember. And as far as events go, it's really just going to depend on my personal like resources. I've got Loonshine coming up. I would love to get out to like Seattle for some of their tourneys, maybe the Tacoma Open, some of the events put together by some of the Eastern Washington Warhammer boys. But there's just a lot up in the air. I would also love to dive into Flesh Eater courts. I mean, I've been a Slaanesh player since before AOS began, and so I'm not dropping that anytime soon. But just like Taran's doing with his Skaven, I want to do a hobby Flesh Eater courts army because they're just so fun. I just love having a bunch of like raving pseudo vampiric cannibalistic whatevers that I can paint like Silent Hill creatures, and it appeals. And just like Taran was saying, or yeah, just like both of these guys were saying, I want to get better in the ITC. This year, I very briefly, after my first 4-1, had number 10 for Slaanesh. And then after LVO, it slipped to 12, which is worse, but more thematic. So it was a moral victory. And I would just love to continue that climb. And these boys with my team, as well as Jeremy Lefebvre, actually, who ended up winning LVO, have all been helping me to get better and to, just be the best Slaanesh player I can be. And to that effect, I'm a little apprehensive, but I'm also looking forward to 4th edition coming out, since everybody's going to have to relearn everything from the ground up. And we're pretty sure it's coming. It's not official yet, but we're pretty sure.
I have no idea about 4th edition. I just know General Handbook 2024 will be coming in 6 months. No further comment about any 4th or 5th or 7th edition. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, of course.
No idea. No idea.
What about you? What about you, Coach? What is your plans?
Oh yeah, what's on the menu?
Yeah, it's a good question actually. So I have a teams tournament coming up in a few months, and I think my 3-2. I really should have gone 4-1. I'm a bit disappointed in myself. I should have gone 4-1 with Gargants. I'm in two minds. One, I could keep running Gargants, and I think I'd like to, because if I come to LVO again next year, it probably will be Gargants. It's just a really good army for me to transport halfway around the world. But I think my time with King Broadstomp might come to an end. I feel like part of the reason I lost those two games, they were both very close games, was because of battle tactics. And because they all won the turn 2 prio, I couldn't charge, which means I didn't have opportunities to do charging BTs. So I almost want to go back to the old book and just go with 3 negas, 3 babies. And I think that gives me more flexibility with battle tactics, and I think ultimately a stronger list. But then bloody Games Workshop released the Bird Lady for Daughters of Cain. And I have a wonderful Daughters of Cain army that I highly enjoyed until Bounty Hunters kind of ruined them. So Bird Lady has got me a little bit curious to maybe pick up the Daughters of Cain. So I'm curious to see what she brings and if she can replace Marathi to a degree and allow me to bring some avatars. And in the meantime, I've been working on my Old World army and Cities of Sigmar as well. So it's a slow burn type of army that will come to fruition. But I think much all like you, it's all War Scroll dependent, like what the Battle Scroll brings. Maybe it inspires me to bring Stormcast out again. Maybe I contrast paint the Cities of Sigmar. Who knows? I think.
Yeah, I think, for me personally, I plan to go to a lot more events like, this year, but I haven't really been thinking about the future because mainly I'm someone that kind of likes to live in the present. And also, I think, we're waiting for the Battle Scroll because it's a huge shakeup of the game. And I think that's another reason why I'm like getting into Feck, because it's just, I don't want to practice in any of the other armies I have because I know they're going to change. Where Feck, I don't think it's going to change in points because it's about to just come out. So I'd rather just learn something that isn't going to change, and then I'll figure out the rest later.
Yeah, I, as much as I wanted some more tournaments, I've been going through some health issues with my dog. Like we've been battling cancer, so like for me, like I've actually pulled back a few of my events, for the last 24 months, just because like I'm spending all my money on my dog and I want to spend as much time with my dog. But I've also just I'm building a gaming studio. I guess I just got a brand new gaming table that I will debut soon. So it may bring battle reports and things like that. But there's a bit of resources that need to be allocated. So it's that I'd love to go to all the events, but I also need to build this for the long term.
Yeah.
Two final questions, and then we will bring this to a close. Do you have any advice? Curtis, old crafty on Twitter, had asked any advice for a more casual player wanting to go to the LVO as their first GT. So I guess this could be LVO or Adepticon or Nova, but I guess in the context of old crafty, let's stick with LVO. What advice would we give a more casual player wanting to go to the LVO? Anyone got any initial thoughts?
Oh,
So
sure.
some of my initial thoughts. Oh, sorry, Trish.
Trish first, then Matt.
Yeah, sorry.
My advice is don't worry about it. Like I came from like, you a perspective where you got to lose to win. And so like you are going to play against some more meta lists, but you're also going to play against a lot of lists that really aren't. And this is a prime opportunity to, especially if you're from like a small meta, to learn what other people are playing all over the world even. And it's, you may 05, you might even actually like 2-3 as a new player. You never know what you're going to go up against, but it's the experience. And just go there with a learning mindset. Go there with the idea like, I'm not here to win, I'm here to learn, and then I'm here to meet awesome people who I may be partying with afterwards. And to, it just go with the idea that you're going to enjoy all the talent on display, whether that's, generalship, painting, or, just people being personable. Like go there looking for the total package of the experience, as opposed to, am I going to win my games?
Yeah.
Love it, Matt.
Yeah, I definitely agree with like Trish about there. I think, just to go on a little bit, I think if you're a new player for LVO going to your first time, I remember when I went to my first LVO, I did end up 4-1, but I definitely did not play on it at the time. I literally just wanted to go there and play 5 awesome games and also just enjoy the convention. And another recommendation I make is like, because it's about 4 or 5 days, pick a hotel that you're okay with staying at, whatever it's the Rio or somewhere like nice. And then, because after you're done with the games each day, there's like a lot to do. Where if you just want to relax, there's things you can relax. There's good food. If you want to like, do a lot of research if it's your first time going to Vegas about like what you want to do. Because the thing I found about Vegas is that like it can be tailored to any experience. Whenever you just want to party or you just want to chill or just like hang out with friends and everything. So I, go there just for, it's not just a tournament. It's not just a convention either. It's just a whole life experience that you get to, you get to escape from work and, other life stuff and just like have like the time of your life. Basically when I go to LVO, it feels like I'm reliving like my fraternity days and just, it's great.
Nice. Taran, anything you'd add to this?
Yeah. There's a lot of like other advice I would give. Bring an army you're gonna have fun with, especially if like you're not really bring an army you love. I've seen people bring armies that they're like, oh, I just need a good result, and I feel like my army's trash right now. Something you can carry is all very important to me, honestly. Something that you can easily carry to this, especially for flying, and something that like you'll just have fun games of. Something you enjoy the lore of. Something you enjoy having on the table. It's so important. Do not be afraid to talk to as many people as you can. Like, get to know these people. You'll be friends with them. Like, they are friendly. I've seen Matt pick up strays all the time. Like, Matt's like, oh, it's Dave. He's joining us tonight. I'm like, who's Dave? It's like, I don't know. I found him, though. And I'm like, yeah, it's a wonderful. Like, well, and now we're all friends with Dave. It's not a real person, but be very open to doing that. Those are probably the big things I would think about, right? Like, it isn't about winning, but if like you enjoy winning, like bring an army you love because that's going to make the winning like so much more. It's like it's not like winning, it's how you win, and that's what's usually most gratifying. It's not, oh, I'm going to gotcha you, I'm going to like time you out, I'm going to like, oh, you can't play the game because we've run out of time. It's, I had a great game and there are dice rolls and I made good decisions and I'm proud that I made good decisions. And if you're a competitive player, that's what you should be taking out of it. You should say, and if I didn't do well and I made bad decisions, now I can learn for the next year, right? Some people do think competition is very important. I like competing. So if that is really important to you, compete the right way. Compete in a way in which your opponent will look at you in the eye and be like, that was a great game. Even if I'm upset I lost, that was a great game. I'm happy with how it went. And like I'm glad this was a game of Warhammer, right? You're still there for Warhammer and to some extent. That's my advice.
No, I love it. Maybe some closing comments from myself. And it's almost like just basically rehashing what some of you have said, right? If you want to win, you've got 12 months. These events, whether it's, again, Nova, LVO, Adepticon, CanCon, whatever, they're all annual events. So as of right now, we have 12 months till the next LVO. I've now got myself a nice little goal that by the next 12 months, I'm going to pick my army. I'm going to paint it up as lovely as I can. I'm going to practice with this army in order to do the best I can at LVO, if I want to be competitive. If I'm more casual, I think it's the mindset that Trish was alluding to as well, which is don't go in putting pressure on yourself going, I need to go 3-2 or I'm a failure. I'm just going to meet people. I'm going to do as best as I can, and I'm going to meet great people and have fun. Whether I go 0-5, whether I go 3-2, or I do better than that, it's the start of my journey. And if you are really casual, there is also a narrative event that happens simultaneously. So there is an AOS narrative event, which is run really well. I think there was like 30 players this year, which is really cool. It'll just continue to grow. Alternatively, on the last day of the Age of Sigmar tournament, there is a doubles event, so a 2-on-2. So you can bring a friend and you have 1,000 points each, and you play with a friend, and that might give you a more confidence in being a bit more casual in a competitive scene, and it's a lot of fun. Hell, Noah borrowed my army. He asked me the night before, "Hey, can I run Gargants?" And him and oh my god, I've just had a mind blank.
Teresa.
Teresa. Yes, I was going to say Trish, but no, I'm talking to Trish. Teresa. The T word is in my head. Teresa, they just ran ogres and gargants and had an incredible time, I'm told, and they all look like they were having fun. So, again, it's just the mindset you bring to the table. Two final questions. One coming from Jason Smith over on Twitter. Would you like to see an 8-round champs event similar to how the format is at the Cherokee Open? So I'm not familiar with the Cherokee Open. I am obviously familiar with 8-round events. Would you want to see essentially LVO become more games?
I
All right,
don't.
Taran first. Taran, then Trish.
I'm not completely sure because to me, LVO isn't actually the pinnacle of like championship and competition. It is a little bit more friendly than I think like some of the events. Like I think World like Championships happened recently, and that is a slightly better format if you want a purely competitive event. To me, like if you want to say I want the full experience of LVO, I would say like 80% of these players don't concern themselves with going 5-0. They want to be decent, but they're not practicing the entire year, and it's just a little too much. It's just a little too much to say. And when you're in Vegas, you want to be in Vegas to like. I don't think most people would enjoyably be able to be like, I'm going to play this army, I'm bring this army, I'm going to go out and party, not get great sleep, and do it for 3 whole days of like important gaming. Like it's too much for specifically LVO.
Trish?
Yeah, no, Taran covered a lot of that. Like, I mean, technically, I was in doubles with my fiance Liz, who was otherwise there for the 40K tournament, and my brain was gone by that day. Like, there was so much partying and so much being done that by the time that we got to doubles, it was like we are getting a bucket of beer per round and we are rolling dice and whatever happens happens. And I cannot imagine trying to fit a third day of actual competitive gaming in that way, for a setting like LVO. Like Taran said, for something more like, a championship series where it's, really just all about the tourney and not about, the fact that it's in Vegas, I think that would work better. But for LVO as what it is, the like at most I would say like if we were to go to like a 6 round, but still on 2 days, that would probably be doable. But I think 8 is too big an ask.
Matt?
Yeah, so I share the same opinion as Taran and Trish here on like I think LVO, because it's in Vegas and everything, and I think people have different expectations for LVO being the capstone event of the year. People don't want to play like 8 games unless you are 5-0 and trying to get a top 8. However, as there's other events in the US that like last year that have done 8 games. So when I went to Nova last year, they actually gave everyone the option, no matter what your placing was, to play 8 games. So depending on your record for the first 5 games, they put you into like a bracket with people with similar like win record, and like you get to play like another game on a third game on Saturday and 2 more games on Sunday. And honestly, I really love that experience because I like to compete a lot, and I really want to experience what it's like to, what top 8 players get to experience when they get to play 8 games of Warhammer in a single weekend. Is it tiring? Yes, but I really like enjoyed the challenge of it. And I would, I wouldn't mind if there's more events like that, but I understand why it's harder to do because you're asking a lot of players to take off Friday when usually people come to Friday for like the event, or they come Friday and then they play Saturday, Sunday. Where even though LVO starts on Friday, I think because people have a different mindset about LVO itself, like, it's not just a tournament, it's harder to convince people to do 3 more games outside of the 5. And, I think people are, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think people are happy with how LVO is, and there's no reason to change it. But I love that other events like Cherokee and then Nova are still giving the players the option to do like an 8 like game format, just so everyone can like experience it. Is it going to be everyone's favorite? No, but will some people like love it and like love to try to get 8 games in, especially maybe because they come from somewhere that they don't get a lot of games in? Yeah, of course. So like I think, I like that a lot of events in the US for Age of Sigmar like are tailored to like different experiences, you know. So yeah, that's kind of my take on the subject.
I tend to agree. If we want a most competitive, yeah, we'll do eight. But what's the impact to the semi-casual or the people who just want the 5 games and the Vegas experience? And do you see a heavy dropout, or do you see a drop in registration, or do you see something, as you've mentioned, like Nova and Cherokee, where there is an optional continuation? Obviously, for people who don't want to continue, it doesn't negatively impact them so much. But for the people who want to continue, there's other options, because maybe you don't want to play doubles, or maybe you want to get more 2K point games in. So I tend to agree with the sentiment in the room. The last question, and then I'll wrap it up, and you guys can tell people where they can find you on the internet, is will you be attending LVO 2025? Crazy to be talking about 2025 already. Trish, where are you at currently? Obviously, time and finances and stuff, like obviously they're considerations, but if all the stars line up, will you be in attendance?
If I were to have a lot of the same opportunities I did this year, Windmill Slam 100% going to LVO next year. Like I would be very hard pressed to skip a year if I can at all help it. It is what I spend all year looking forward to, and I don't see that changing.
Taran?
Yeah, I share that same sentiment. I think this coming up year, like, if finances allow, if time allows, like this year, like this year was sketchy for time allowing. Like, I definitely told my teachers I was very sick, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm out. Oh, I can't come to school today." I hope none of my teachers are my professors are avid Age of Sigmar players. Um, but yeah, if it allows, I would love to. It's something I look forward to. I love hanging out with all my friends. It's like, I don't know. It's always, I think everyone, like, in their hobbies, like, no, even if it's not Warhammer, I think that's a general thing. There's always like one thing in the year you're looking forward to, and LVO is definitely like one of those for me.
Matt?
Yeah, like I think, it's definitely become like a holiday for me, kind of like how Christmas and like Halloween and Valentine's is. It's like, it's something that happens every year and I have to do it because like from, everything about it is just amazing. From when I have to like be the soccer mom and rally all the SoCal guys in my van to drive up there to like the hotel experience, we're all staying there, we're playing games, we're partying every night till like 4 a.m. And then so much happens the weekend, and then suddenly it's like Sunday night / Monday morning where it's like, now we have to go home. And I'm just like, I always feel FOMO. Like I'm a very like FOMO kind of person. So like things happen quickly, and then I'm just like, damn. Like as soon as even though like I'm sometimes when it's like a lot has happened, I'm like kind of ready to go home. But as soon as I go home, I'm like, damn, I want to do it all over again. So yes, I'm always coming to LVO. It's a good time, and again, it's like Christmas. It has to happen. So I have to be there. I mean, unless of course something life comes up, but like outside of that, I'm always going to be there no matter what. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And if you're asking me the question, it's a good question. I would love to be in Vegas every year. I think the question though is it Vegas, LVO, or Nova? I've never done Nova. I did Adepticon pre-COVID, and because LVO and Adepticon are so close to each other, I can't justify 2 American trips. But if LVO continues to grow like it is, it's hard to say no to 500 players, right? Which is probably a realistic number for next year. You've got 500 of Age of Sigmar people from around the world. You do get Europeans, you get the French, you get the one idiot from Australia who travels across the world. It's a lovely melting pot, and there's very few opportunities like this. The World Teams Championship, the AOS Worlds now in Atlanta. and LVO is like one of the greatest melting pots. So
Yeah.
it's penciled in. But if people want to talk to you and talk about your faction and talk about experiences or something you've said around on this pod, where can people find you? Let's go, Matt.
Yeah, so they can find me on Twitter. I think my username is Roz9497. They can also find me under Matt Nooog on the AOS Coach Discord. I post a lot in the Beast of Chaos Grand Alliance chat, and I also now I've been posting a lot in the Flesh Eater Courts chat as I'm like trying different builds and experimenting. And I'm always happy for like people to PM me about Beast of Chaos or just like anything else. So I love talking, as everybody knows here, and like I said, hit me up.
And any shout outs? Sorry, I should have said it. Any shout outs you want to make?
I want to shout out, like outside of, I could make a lot of shout outs. Like, I love the SoCal community. I love the SoCal community. That's why I'm very happy to be here with like Trish and, Taran. Shout out to like, all the TOs like Tom, Scott Reed, and then shout out to like the other teams that I have the pleasure of like playing and partying with, like Corsairs, Tough Crowd, and then Austin Weird Knobs, and like, and then a party at the all ports. There's just so many like shout outs I can make, but these are like
Harambe Heroes. There was a really
Harambe Heroes too, and congrats to them for like winning the whole thing for ITC teams. So yeah,
awesome. Taran, where can people find you on the internet and any shout outs?
The only actual place is just on the Discord. I think on the Discord I'm Honey Nut. Feel free to message me and ask me questions. Shout outs. Obviously the people I played Martin Orlando, Elias Newbum, who's also like a good friend of mine. Great game with him. Alex Gonzalez, Nevin, I think was one of my opponents. Tad Baton was a Gloomspite Geek, I think is his team. All amazing opponents. And all the teams who are there. I think the teams really bring like a special energy to LVO. Tough Crowd, Corsairs, Age of Ligmar, probably the party, Harambes. Always like all of them are very friendly and fun people. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to Matt. He drove me there. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be able to play AOS without Matt. Like I borrow like 90% of my models from him. He takes me everywhere. I'm in a hotel of him most of the time. I'm pretty like we sleep in the same bed for like half the events. Like so, shout out to Matt. All my other friends.
This sounds like this is an after dark stream now. Between spankings and sleeping in the same bed, I think there is
we live like 5 minutes from each other.
Yeah. I'm literally like his soccer mom. What?
Yeah. Sure.
Trish, where can people find you, and any shout outs? Are you on mute?
Not anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've done so well before we've gone into like I can't hear you. Please mute microphone. The traditional cliches of corporate world these days. But Trish, sorry, where can you find you?
I started the party foul right at the end. If you want to find my delightful midnight rantings, you can follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter, which will forever be such in my mind, at Celefaze, Celefaze. No relation to FaZe Clan. I found out about them afterwards. And you can also find me in the AOS Coach Discord. And I frequently haunt the Slanesh chat as well as the party room where the spoilers should go if we had any. And otherwise, I guess I'll shout out some wonderful people in SoCal. One of our new up and coming ladies in the scene, Sarah, who I think is going to great places. My twin, my drinking buddy, Joe, who is amazing. My fiancés for letting me come to this, and one of them for accompanying me. And my War Glamour teammates, especially Elias Newbaum. We're a team of 2, so hopefully especially him. And just everyone in the community. New faces, old faces. Y'all are wonderful.
Yeah, my last shout outs are going to be to everyone who attended, who makes the event incredible, whether it is someone who just participated or hanging around, anyone who come over and said hello or we got a photo together, to my opponents, to the TOs, to the general staff. Thank you for the vendors. Like, the vendors were incredible with their time as well, chatting to like the Monument Paint people, talking to Artist Opus, talking to Baron of Dice, talking to obviously Games Workshop and hooking me up with some old world stuff. Like, everyone was just good vibes, really good vibes. And it's on that note, I'm going to thank you all, Trish, Matt, Taran. Thank you for your time. For people who have listened to this whole episode, I hope you have a good feel of what Las Vegas Open is all about. This, again, is not mutually exclusive just to this particular event. I highly encourage you, if you're in the Midwest, go check out Adepticon. If you're out on the East Coast, go check out the Nova. There's lots of other cool events all around, where like Everwinter or Old Town Throwdown. And, you know, if you're in Europe, there's, you know, like Raccoon Rumble and CanCon in Australia. And there's so many cool events like this that will all share similar experiences, just without the Vegas flavor that the LVO has. But on that note, thank you all for your time. I'm going to wave and stop the recording. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to leave a comment and tell us what your favorite LVO experience is, or what, I don't know, just leave a comment for the algorithm gods. All right, bye-bye. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AOS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a 1-1 on a spellcast.